done enough tonight.
Guess I would need to look at the agenda.
Whatever for.
Yeah.
Ready?
I didn't.
Yeah, you need, probably need to do that.
I got a blue light, that mean I'm on.
You just turn mine off. No, it came on.
I'm pushing. Gotcha.
Okay,
Blue light has to go off.
ladies and gentlemen, if it seems like we're a little discombobulated tonight, that's probably the case because our city manager who tells me what to do is not here. Mr. Ogburn, who very seldom ever misses a meeting, is a little under the weather, so he usually sits right here. And
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm not gonna be any help.
I know how much I lean on him now. So I will remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. So just a cautionary statement to say that if whatever you say or do is going to be seen by quite a few people around the city of Asheboro. And that goes for the council too. If you would, at this point, stand and join me in a moment of silent prayer. Ask that you meditate in any manner that you're comfortable, and we will follow that with pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are here tonight to conduct the business of the city for Thursday, January the 11th, year 2024. It is an honor for me to make this first presentation, and I will just say that I feel less than adequately qualified to stand up in front of you and talk about this gentleman, but I'm gonna make an attempt to do that. I want to call Hal Johnson, our retired county manager, to the front, and Gloria, would you like to come with him?
It's gonna let me.
That's up to Hal. So,
He's smart, man.
you know, come on up here. At the commission meeting last week, or first of this week, I guess Monday night, there was a lot said about this gentleman, and Hal has served the last 9 years as county manager. What many of you may not know is that he spent 39 years prior to that working for the county in various capacities in planning and zoning. He was the zoning guru, and I remember when I was just a little bitty kid. having to go over there and talk to Mr. Johnson about a zoning matter that involved me, and I was scared to death. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, your dad was a city councilman?
Yes, in the late 40s.
In the late 40s, this gentleman's dad served right here in this city hall as a city councilman city of Asheboro. And I know that's a factoid that very, very few of us know about. But a lot was said, and that's really why I'm kind of puzzled and at a loss of anything intelligent and worthwhile to say about this man, because so much has been said about him this week. But I will tell you in a nutshell that when Hal Johnson was made, was elevated from Director of Planning and Zoning to the county manager. I have a little trouble with my city-county relationship. The county manager, there was no zoning, there was no 911. The list of what we didn't have in Randolph County in the way of amenities and 21st century improvements was way longer than the list of what we did have. And this gentleman standing right here personally made sure that we were prepared to go into the next century. As the manager, he headed up zoning. Zoning was a foreign concept in Randolph County when we were working at planning and zoning. And, I mean, we were still operating under the my land, I'll do what I want to do concept, regardless of how it affects my neighbors. You can't tell me what to do with my land, and Hal took the brunt of that. And then we had no 911, and from that we went to a 911, which involved naming every single road and pathway in Randolph County for a 911 address, and then turned right around and implemented enhanced 911 with the technology was available that allowed the 911 operators the ability to tell where you were calling from. So if you were incapacitated, you didn't have to say, well, I live at 1803 Coxmore. They knew where you were calling from if you were calling from home. And then all that's down the toilet with the cell phone. I can't stand up here tonight and tell you what he has been involved in, but it is safe to say that anything good for the citizens of Randolph County has his man's stamp on it. And we are pleased to have you here tonight to honor you with a key to the city presented to Hal Johnson for distinguished service to the citizens of Randolph, Asheboro, January 11th, 2024. And I hope you will stick this on the wall somewhere prominent that your brand new grandbaby can't get to it.
You all will protect. Thank you so much. Just a word and how much I appreciate this honor and recognition from the Asheboro City Council. I can't tell you what the future is going to be in Randolph County and Asheboro, but the coordination and the cooperation between the city and the county has been absolutely instrumental in any type of successes that we've had. And as the future moves forward, you're going to see the city of Asheboro play even more of a critical role in whatever the standard of life and the quality of life that we have in Randolph County and in our community. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for this key to the city. Thank all of you.
We may never be blessed again with someone of his character that gives so many hours and years to the city and the county. And Hal said in today's article in the newspaper that he expects you to stay involved. Well, I got a list of things. Okay, so that was the easy part of the night. I'm gonna call on item 4, if you have a copy of the agenda, I'm gonna call on, Eddie Corder. Ms. Corder is Executive Director of Downtown Asheboro Incorporated.
Good evening, City Council members. I don't know if this thing's on. I can talk loud. Is it on? I don't know. Anyway, good evening. Today I am here with Gary Hoover from Hoover Hatchet House and also on behalf of Downtown Asheboro, Inc. To request authorization to work with city staff to evaluate the Zoo City Social District and consider the expansion of the district to include Hoover Hatchet House. It's been about a year since we last evaluated the maintenance and management plan as well as the ordinance and boundary. So we would like to take a look at that and see if there are any recommendations and also consider the expansion.
That require action?
Yes. We would need direction for city staff. You want us to explore options for expanding the district at a minimum.
I would move that we ask city staff to explore that possibility.
Have a motion to direct, for the council to direct city staff to do the proper exploration and research on the expansion of the social district. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Discussion?
Just one clarification, this will also involve looking at the management plan and just kind of everything?
Yes.
As an annual review?
And I have a thing, when Mr. Hoover called me last year about this, and I referred him to Ms. Corder, and in conversations with Ms. Corder, I expressed my concerns about safety, as I usually do. But also, in looking at this, us doing this on a very frequent basis, that we're doing this, I know it's been probably a year, but it seems like that was one of the things we wanted to avoid. I know we started off small because we wanted to see how it worked, but then it came back quickly after that. Now here we are at a third time, and as I mentioned to you, let's look at going ahead. If this is going to pass, let's go ahead and look at getting an area that's big enough so that we don't have to do this all the time. Because it's stressful whether you're for it or against it. It's stressful from the community who comes and attacks however you vote for the folks that are up here. So let's go ahead and get an area so that we don't have to revisit this on a frequent basis.
Absolutely.
That's just what I would like to see when you come back.
We can certainly come back with options too for the board to review.
City staff, that you've heard what Councilman Burks would like to see in the way of additional research. When you come to us with a recommendation or a plan, we'd like to at least see a little bit more in depth about, to avoid having to keep coming back.
And just to add to that, we would be forced at the staff level to look at broadening it anyway, because we try to take account of where there are crosswalks. If you have to cross the street, we also try to take account of where it's possible to put up signage and not create an aesthetic problem with the signage. So all those factors together lead to where you tend to look at a more expansive territory, and we'll try to structure that as far as options that you can choose from, and we'll shoot for bringing that back to you at the February council meeting.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions for Ms. Corder? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of instructing staff to do this research, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're doing a good job, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Got a lot to work with now, don't we?
Happy anniversary. Yeah.
Today your anniversary?
No, just
One
year,
year.
1 year on the
When you're on the
job.
job.
Job anniversary.
Mr. Hoover,
Yes, sir.
How's the axe throwing business?
It's busy. Been good.
That's good.
A lot of pent-up aggression.
Well, you say me throw an axe.
The
I
mayor,
want you to come. I've been looking for you.
the mayor took all the keepy dolls in Daytona.
Okay, old business. I will, reopen the correct terminology. Reopen the legislative hearing for case RZ twenty-three 14. And this is an application to, rezone property on the west side of Zoo Parkway and the south side of Newbern Avenue for a subdivision.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this request is to take the property from R40, R15, and a portion of R10 zoning to a conditional zoning, R7.5 zoning district. That is defined as a medium-density residential zoning district under the city code. Specifically, we're looking at a request for what the codes define as a residential planned unit development. This matter was originally scheduled to be on the council's agenda in October. The first continuance that council authorized was in October. That was to allow the planning board time to work with the applicant on a review of the traffic study. And so that has concluded. The traffic study is in your packets. It's published online, and it has been since last week. The planning board did hear this application this Monday, and we'll go through the case here and their recommendation. It is a request by Ridge Road Partners, LLC, not the property owner, but the property owner has signed on to this application. The maps indicate that we're looking at about 94 of a total of 104 acres comprised by 2 parcel numbers. And the location is between Newbern Avenue and Zoo Parkway. Presently, the property is undeveloped. Up on the screen, and I realize it's kind of hard to see for folks out in the audience, but this gives you an idea of the existing zoning and jurisdictional boundaries for the city. Any colored areas on this map identify city land use jurisdiction. The areas with the dots denote that land is actually in our extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction, not within the city limits. If you see colored areas without those dots, that indicates Asheboro corporate limits. So as you look to the north of the subject property and east to some degree there, we have adjoining properties outside of the city limits, but within our zoning jurisdiction. If you look to the west, letter H, I believe, on the map is Teaching Elementary School. You don't see those dots. That property is both within our zoning jurisdiction and the corporate limits. The blue cross-hatched areas on the map identifies regulated floodplain as it's defined by FEMA. That is Vestal Creek and tributaries to Vestal Creek that flow through the property. On this map, it's also useful to identify who is considered an abutting landowner under the North Carolina general statutes. Abutting landowners are required by law to be mailed first-class notice of a public hearing, such as is occurring tonight. I do want to say the city's actually sent 2 rounds of public notices pertaining to this request. The first was in September in anticipation of a potential hearing in October. Due to the continuances, we additionally mailed notices in December last month for this case. We also re-advertised in working with the applicant on this to ensure that there was proper published notice in the newspaper. And there has been, if you've been by the site, you should see that there's been a sign, there have been signs posted on the property for quite some time. This is probably the easiest depiction from all of the graphics and plans within the application to see at this scale for this hearing. So this is a rendering of the various components and street layouts, and open space, environmental considerations on the property. Any of the yellow or red areas identify either single-family detached lots or townhome style lots. The yellow would be the single-family, the red would be the townhomes proposed with the application. I'll note there are two primary accesses to this property as proposed. One is from Zoo Parkway, and one would extend New Bern past Teachy into the site. That location is in the top left corner of this rendering. Green areas, again, is going to denote areas that will be preserved, set aside, quite a bit of which is within regulated floodplain area. And then the gray areas, obviously, is the proposed street network for the site. I'll point out that as required by the city code and by solid planning principles, we do look for potential areas where public streets, which are proposed with this development, could potentially be extended into the future to ensure that the city grows in a manner that provides an interconnected street network as opposed to a city of dead-end streets and cul-de-sacs, forcing everyone back onto the main roadway. So you can see in some areas, even at this scale, that there are some what appear to be dead-end streets, if you will. Those are intended to serve as potential street extensions in the future should an adjacent property owner make an application to the city for some sort of development. When we discussed this with the board Monday, we spent time really hitting the highlights, and I'm going to do a very similar presentation with you all here this evening to discuss what has changed since the initial application was submitted to the city, I believe back in August. I mentioned one of the key elements that has come along with this application now, and that is the traffic impact analysis or a traffic study that has been completed, submitted to both the city and NCDOT. We will touch on those findings of that study, and I'm sure the applicant will touch on it as well. There are recommendations from both the traffic engineer as well as DOT for adjacent roadway improvements at the proposed entrance to the project from Zoo Parkway, as well as two what I consider more off-site improvements that DOT believes are warranted based on traffic projections by the development. We have seen a slight increase from 346 lots to 350 from the plan that the planning board reviewed back in September. However, the application that was submitted was anticipating a potential of 400 dwelling units on the property. And what you see with this request, the plans of which are at your place, is 350. The designer and the applicant has realigned how the public roadway would come into the development from a New Bern Avenue. That has created more of a traditional four-way stop intersection versus what would have been a kind of a hooking entrance after you get into the site. We believe what is provided with the current layout is a better design. That redesign has also repositioned some of the proposed lots further away from some of the existing neighbors and more interior to the site, and resulted in some common elements on open space areas right at the entrance on New Bern there. There is also now additional visitor parking that you will note on the plan. There had been some parking within the common elements on the initial plan. We've talked with the applicant about concerns related to parking availability and the applicant has dispersed additional visitor overflow parking throughout the project. You'll note there is a trail network that's proposed as a part of this project. Planned unit developments under the city code are required to provide pedestrian infrastructure from all lots to all common area. And what the applicant has proposed to do with this plan is to use a combination of sidewalks as well as trails to provide that element, that required element. I will say if you look at the plan, there are some lots presently that would be not directly connected to either a trail or a sidewalk. It may be a sidewalk that's across a street from the lot. But if you look through the conditions that the city staff has proposed, we have asked that if the project is approved, that the development plans be modified to ensure that every lot either has trail or sidewalk connections as a part of the development. We have also added some conditions related to both internal and external street connectivity to ensure that that important principle that I mentioned earlier for transportation purposes is met. So we've added a condition since September to address that. Real quickly, this is zoomed out a little further from the first map I showed you. You can see city jurisdiction essentially comes down both sides of Zoo Parkway, either via city limits or through zoning jurisdiction. You can see the surrounding zoning on this map as well. There's quite a bit of R10 zoning, also a medium density residential zoning district. The difference between the R10 and the traditional R7.5 is that R10 is a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size for traditional non-planned unit development projects. R7.5 is a more dense district, and under traditional subdivision design would allow lots to be as small as 7,500 square foot. In this case, as with all planned unit developments, there is an option to cluster and deviate from those district lot sizes in order to maximize buildable potential on a site and set aside and preserve the less buildable portions of the property. The stipulation, though, is that you can't exceed what you would otherwise get under that district. So you have an R7.5 here that's proposed this evening. There are lots that are less than 7,500 square feet in size, but overall, the number of lots is less than what would otherwise be permitted within the R7.5 district, and that is a requirement of the code. This is a topographic and utilities map. You can see the location of what are city-maintained water and sewer lines, both through the property. There is a sewer main that is along Vestal Creek and the tributary to Vestal, and out in the public roadways on Zoo Parkway and Newbern, as well as surrounding streets. We have public water lines that are available. So this project has access to that infrastructure. The property currently is outside the city limits, so if the project were to be approved and authorized, one of the first conditions you probably see is that annexation would have to occur consistent with the city's policies. This is an aerial photo. It's a little grainy at this level, but shows the undeveloped nature of the property as well as the surrounding development pattern. This is a side angle view, and actually west is oriented towards the top of the screen. So Zoo Parkway is at the bottom, you'll see there, and Newbern is towards the top of the screen. This just gives you a different perspective of the development patterns in the area. I've included all of the plan sheets that you all have at your places. It's much easier to see these either on those sets or either online. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through these. you all can look at them, and they have been available. But it does provide the details that the city requires in terms of how a project would be anticipated to be built should it be approved. So you'll see right-of-way dimensions, you'll see lot sizes, you'll see the sidewalk, the location, see the trail location, you'll see the areas that are identified to be common elements that would be owned and controlled by an owners association. That would be a requirement of the project, that there be an owners association created to manage and control those areas. And you can see an idea of where how the utility systems would be laid out. The applicant has provided various building renderings to give you and the public an idea of the style of homes that will be proposed. So there are various single-family detached renderings that have been submitted. The full submittal package from the applicant is published online. So there are more details than this contained in the application, but for this presentation, we limited it to these renderings. And then in terms of the attached townhomes, the applicant has provided us an image giving you an idea of the style of those townhomes to be constructed. The one difference in the plan that you are looking at is that the proposal would be for a combination of 5 to 7 attached dwelling units within that phase 1 of the project where the townhomes exist. You can see here there are 3 units attached in this photo. We have a couple photos of the area. This is looking at towards the subject property north along Zoo Parkway. Subject property is to the left. Turn around looking south now on Zoo Parkway, subject property to the right. This is a view on New Bern that's looking towards the subject property. The plans that are submitted would essentially, I'm going to be mixed up here. This is looking south on New Bern. The plan submitted would show New Bern would be extended to the left side of the screen. You can see Teachy Elementary in the background. This is what I thought that photo was. This is looking east along New Bern, subject property straight ahead, and the plans would propose to bring the roadway past that stop sign into the site and then a curve to the right. We talk about in our staff report a recommendation that we had made to the applicant to provide some level of screening for where we felt it was really essential to adjacent property owner. There is a condition that we requested and the applicant did meet and has showed it on the plan to provide fencing along this property line of this dwelling here that you see in the picture. That is reflected on the plan, and that would provide some screening beside the roadway that would come into the property. We're back now on Zoo Parkway, a little further north from the subject property, looking towards 64, and then further south on Zoo Parkway, looking south. Another photo of New Bern near the proposed entrance, which would be behind us in this photograph. Teachy Elementary is to the left side. And we turn around and are now looking east on New Bern Avenue. I mentioned the traffic engineer recommendations. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because the applicant will I expect them to cover details of this. But I will tell you that the recommendations from the traffic study that was done by Davenport, who is the traffic engineer for the applicant, looked at all of the trips generated by the proposed development, as well as took traffic counts, and came back with a recommendation of a dedicated left turn lane that would be warranted for the proposed project on New Bern to serve the primary access to the site on Zoo Parkway to serve primary access on Zoo Parkway. That's depicted where I have the red label, it says left turn lane into property from Zoo Parkway. That is that blue arrow that's within the traffic study suggesting that that is warranted. There were no additional recommendations from their traffic engineer on for the project based on the study that was performed. DOT, as is typical for these type of studies, did comment on the traffic study and came back with recommendations and stipulations for the project that would require not only the left turn lane on Zoo Parkway at the entrance, but also a dedicated right into the site. So there would be a more significant widening of Zoo Parkway at that entrance. DOT has also recommended a new dedicated right turn lane on Zoo Parkway at New Bern Avenue. So it's about a third of a mile north of the subject property, but based on the state's anticipated permitting requirements, they would be in anticipation for a dedicated right turn lane there. And lastly, the state has recommended that a dedicated right turn lane be added to the zoo connector onto Wildlife Way, which is about just short of 2 miles south of the subject property. So based on the DOT's study of the data, there are additional improvements that DOT has recommended and can stipulate.
Trevor, I mean, that letter's included in the.
It is.
In the traffic package there, and I was looking at it. So are all 4 of these incorporated into the current plan that we're talking about?
They are not reflected on the plan. They are, but they are, right. They are, it is a recommendation. The DOT letter, when you review it, says stipulations and recommendations. Ultimately, the state will dictate, what the final requirements are based on the preliminary plans that are submitted. We have not included a condition pertaining to that. The council certainly could if there was a feeling that all those improvements as recommended at DOT for 350 units were essential to the project, and the council could ensure that happens. At this point, there's some uncertainty in terms of how many lots could ultimately be developed once you go through the next stage.
And this DOT letter is a result of an inquiry, and I won't go as far as say hypothetical, and it's more than that, but it's based on a proposal.
Sure.
So as they get exact, and they'll receive a formal something should a road be constructed that would incorporate. I doubt it'd be less, but could be more. So that's where we're at. But you are saying if we wanted to ensure that this were a minimum, that could possibly be addressed.
Certainly can council's purview to take action and ensure that.
Necessarily, because it's not going to be any less.
I think the one, the one where we were probably most uncertain on was the zoo connector improvement. We felt that was, we didn't want to necessarily condition everything, all of the DOT improvements, because we felt like there would probably be continued discussion pertaining to that improvement. But certainly no question, the right and left turns, from our standpoint are essential.
Yeah, item 4, I would agree that's a bit of a reach.
2 miles away.
Yeah, but,
Mile and 3/4.
well, quite frankly, that's more of a factor of other sources of traffic than this. However, I think the other 3 are extremely pertinent.
Since we're talking about the traffic study, I've had some residents ask me, when is it considered kind of future traffic that's going to come from the Sportsplex and the Crestview Church development that when is that factored in?
I will let the traffic team talk about that, but from my review of the study, that is part of the scoping that goes into the project is what has been approved within the area that DOT had requested the applicant to look at. So Sportsplex, recent development, as well as a projected just general growth rate that was agreed upon between the state and the applicant is used. So it's not just this project that is examined. There is other factors that go into that. And I'll let the traffic engineer speak more to that.
I will say, in reading the analysis, I thought it was interesting to note, because I think it's, it may not necessarily been popular, but it's pertinent. The on-campus stacking problem at Teachee School is not fixable by DOT roadway, and according to their analysis, you know, and quite frankly, I don't see where you can put them either way. That doesn't solve any problem for anyone, but I thought it was interesting the way they incorporated that and didn't incorporate that. You know, it's a fact, but a reality's still there.
Sure, sure. And not surprisingly, you know, it was a topic at the planning board level back in September. At that time, we were uncertain what the traffic improvements would be. I think there was some anticipation that potentially there could be some sort of widening at New Bern on Teachee, but yeah, I don't know that there's enough that could be done, you know, to
parking. It strikes me as the case that we had with the Chick-fil-A. How are we supposed to address off-highway stacking?
Yeah.
But
yeah. So, you know, to us, the takeaway was the fact that the traffic engineer did not find any recommendations that could be made. And then this DOT, in their review, did not come back. And as we know that they can make additional stipulations, did not identify New Bern. And you know, from our position, and I think from a lot of people's, the primary issue obviously is arrival and dismissals, right? Like most schools that may not have as much queuing as you'd like, that is what leads to that congestion.
When I was in elementary school, but there we go.
So I'm going to try to quickly go through the analysis here. I've highlighted some areas in yellow. That was more so for the planning board, you know, because they had already heard this once. But I'm going to all of this analysis is important. You all have had the reports, you have them at your places. But I'm going to try and just touch on, you know, what I think had been kind of a particular interest since we first presented this publicly back in September. Again, you're looking at a planned unit development. It does provide flexibility in terms of how the project is laid out, provided you don't exceed density parameters of the district. In this case, you have 286 single-family residences that are proposed. There are 64 attached townhome-style dwellings, again, clustered in groups of 5 to 7 attached. Number 3 there is important. There are amenities that are included with this proposal. It's not at this point, it's not certain exactly what all those will be, but there will be an expectation both through this process and by city code that there be recreational amenities provided. That is a requirement for a planned unit development such as this. So there are some details provided in the application. If the project is approved, we're going to be expecting, you know, those, whatever amenities ultimately are proposed to be consistent with what this application has indicated. 4 in your analysis really spends a lot of time on the traffic study. We've covered that. Did note that a portion of the property is within a regulated 100-year floodplain. Those boundaries are not determined by the city, they're determined by FEMA, and they are reflected on the map. They're shown on your plans. We will regulate those areas as required by FEMA in order for the city to be able to, residents to be able to have flood insurance. I mentioned the additional fencing that the staff had suggested and the applicant has provided. I've mentioned the fact that sidewalks customarily are required, and this is a combination, a hybrid proposal here of sidewalks plus trail. I've noted on here the lots that appear to not have that direct connection, but again, we've added a condition that would seek to ensure that there are some modification to address that at a later point. Again, under number 10, R7.5 is an existing zoning district within the city. It's considered a medium-density residential zoning district, just like the R10 is a medium-density zoning district. I will say R7.5 is the highest density, medium-density district that we have. After you get beyond an R7.5 zoning district, the city's high-density zoning district is actually RA6. So this is medium-density residential, but at the higher limits of that. When you look at the land development plan, our adopted land use plan for guidance, as we always do on these requests, 11 indicates what we think are some relevant language from that application. It's identified on the screen there. And similarly with number 12, that is right from the city's land use plan. And this area has been kind of an area just beyond the city limits that for going on probably 20 years now has been identified as suitable for an expansion of those corporate limits for urban development. When we calculate density for the project as required by the code, we come out to 4.4 dwelling units per acre. Essentially, the way the code instructs us to calculate density is to deduct all of the public right-of-way that is necessary to provide access to the lots in the development. And a property owner does not get credit in terms of a density calculation for that dedicated right-of-way. They do get credit for areas such as floodplain or things that will remain not under the public control. In this case, if you study the plans closely, you'll see there are lot sizes ranging from 3,000 to 4,000 square feet for the townhome portion of the project, with a minimum unit size of 1,150 square feet of conditioned area. Certainly, there could be larger units built, but that would set that is the applicant's proposal for a minimum size. As far as the single-family detached lots, you're looking at lot sizes of 41 to 5,100 square feet, minimum unit size of 1,200 square feet. Again, that it would be the minimum. There could be larger lots built. When you look at a calculated average lot size for the number of lots and the acreage outside of the public right-of-way, you come to an average lot size of about 9,928 square feet, which would just be shy of an R10 zoning designation. 14, I've noted the steps that we've taken to try to ensure that there is public knowledge of this application. This is important. The proposed land use map does identify this as neighborhood residential. One of the key elements of a neighborhood residential district under the land use plan is that it be medium density residential. That designation in our land use plan would not support by itself what would be considered a high density residential district. In this case, we have an R7.5 density and district proposed, and staff's view that is generally consistent with what the city's land use map has recommended. We also look at the lists of goals and policies that are contained within that city land use plan, and we try to identify those goals and policies that seem to be expressly supportive of this application. We've identified those on the screen. We also point out where a proposal may not be supported by particular goals and policies of the land use plan, and so those are also included on the screen. I think at this point, I'd like to stop at the proposed conditions at this point, and if that's all right, Mayor, and let the public and the applicants speak about the project, and then I can close by going through what the staff's suggested conditions are if the council were to wish to put the property in the zoning district. So if I could, I will come back after public comments received, and we'll review these zoning conditions. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions of Mr. Nuttall on what he's
Yeah, it's just one.
passed on to us?
Can I ask one of those?
Not right now, I'm sorry.
I had a question. How wide is the conservation area gonna be between the houses and the creeks that flow down through there?
I'll defer to the designer, and it's gonna vary, but we'll have to defer to the designer in terms of what the various dimensions may be.
Okay, and also now I'm a little bit confused. As these plans we have before us tonight, condition will include the left-hand turn lane, right? Or is that?
You will not see a reference to roadway improvements in our staff suggested conditions. The count, and we fully anticipate the state to dictate a left turn lane for the simple fact that the traffic engineer and DOT agreed on that as warranted. The other elements, there was not unanimous, consensus on. The state will ultimately dictate what those improvements are. If the council feels strongly that those improvements are warranted, that is something that you could propose as part of the project.
We can dictate it should we choose,
Okay, or we can just leave it to the state, between the state and the developer,
Correct,
or not.
or not.
or not? Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Who for the developer would like to speak first?
I would like to, Mr. Mayor.
Trevor, is the notepad there?
I believe, yes. I was
All right.
indicating there was.
Something I neglected. Anybody that speaks to the council when you come to the dais here, you need to print your name on that pad. Just print it, and the purpose of that is so when we transcribe the audio tape, we can give the correct name and spelling.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, good evening. My name is John Ross, and that is a very easy name to write down under such pressure as that. So it is written here, and thank you. Along with Mr. Jerry Fitzgerald and members of our team, Mr. Drew Boggs and Mr. Ingram Walters, we are the Ridge Road Partners, LLC, and we are the applicant for this. Tonight, we also have with us Mr. Christian Vestal, who represents as a project manager Summey Engineering Associates. They are our engineer and our land surveyor located here in Asheboro. And Mrs. Erin Govea, my apologies, is our traffic operations manager and our traffic engineer with Davenport. Pleased to have her here with us tonight as well. That's who we are. In the due process, we sent letters of notice for the zoning map amendment as well as for a voluntary neighborhood meeting. Those letters went out on August the 21st of 2023. As Mr. Nuttall referred, all the adjoining owners, 29 of them, received letters mailed to all the adjoining owners, also sent to the town and to the applicant representatives. We've identified the project boundary, and again, the adjoining property owners were notified. We did hold a voluntary neighborhood meeting. It was held at the Crossroad Baptist Church on August the 28th. In addition to us, the applicant, the landowners, the town staff, there were a total of 5 residents. Of the 29 invitations went out, 5 residents signed in that night that represented 4 adjoining properties. This is the site plan that was presented that evening. You'll see as I talk a little bit more, the site plan has evolved through a couple iterations, but this is just the basis for the discussion that evening. And there were several community discussion items that came out of that. First and foremost, traffic generation and how we would mitigate the traffic. Discussion about open space and wildlife habitat. Discussion about if there would be any use of pesticides or herbicides in the development. How would we buffer against existing residences? Concerns over vehicular connectivity for emergency response. what would be the proposed amenities, and what would be anticipated values of the homes. Again, we started this process in August. We're in January. Why did it take so long? At the Planning Board on September the 5th, the Planning Board continued our case pending the results of the traffic impact analysis. We were pleased to allow that to happen. So we had already engaged Davenport, our traffic engineer. They finished their final scoping in the month of September, and that scoping was submitted to and approved by DOT. In the month of October, the traffic counts were completed. The analysis was initiated, primarily completed. On November 6th, the traffic impact analysis was submitted to DOT for their review and approval. It went to the district office of DOT. They reviewed it. They submitted it to congestion management in Raleigh. They took their time with it. They approved it. They sent it back to the district office. And a week later, which happened to be December the 21st, we received the study, the letter that you see from DOT in your packet. So that's how long it takes to go through the process. That process could not have been started back in the summer because traffic counts have to occur after school is in, after Labor Day, and typically a couple weeks beyond that so that the traffic has normalized. So that is why we are here in January as opposed to what we were hoping would have been October or November. I want to pause for a moment and let Erin write her name here and then talk about the traffic study. This is how to advance this button.
Thank you. All right, now I'm signed in as Erin Govea, so I will talk to y'all just a little bit about traffic studies, and please, if I don't give you enough detail, call me back. If I give you too much, wave me on. The traffic study that we did for Hillcrest Farm was completed by looking at the existing traffic, as he said, after schools had already been in session, so that we had normal traffic for the area. Schools in session was after the holidays, and the counts were taken, turn the right pages, towards the end of September. We also include approved developments like we were talking about. This Zoo City Sportsplex development is included as one of the background developments, so we took the traffic from that site and added it to existing traffic. We also used a growth rate, which was approved by NCDOT, of 1%. That covers kind of anything else that may be happening in the area, general growth for the town and, city, and included that in the no-build traffic. After we do that analysis, we take the trip generation from this site. We look at the townhomes, at the single-family homes. We use nationally recognized trip generation manual to estimate how much traffic these homes are going to generate and apply that to the study roadways that were developed, skip to that slide, the study roadways that were approved through the scoping process again. So the existing intersections were the ones that are in green, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 down there at Zoo Parkway on the bottom right. And then the site access point, number 5, that was new. And then number 2 also has the second site access at the school. So with all of that information, we're able to look at the capacity, we look at the delay, we look at the queues, and looking at the summary of those results, we come up with recommendations. And the recommendations, as have been discussed a little bit already, Davenport determined that a northbound left turn lane into the site on Zoo Parkway was required, recommended 100 feet of storage, and this was submitted to NCDOT. They reviewed it, and they came up with some additional recommendations. That's normal. Sometimes engineers have different opinions on what's necessary in an area, and so they came back and they added a few additional recommendations for this study. So what you see in front of you with the northbound left turn and the southbound right turn at site access 1 is recommended, southbound right turn on New Bern Avenue, and then the westbound right turn from Zoo Connector onto Wildlife Way are the recommendations from NCDOT.
Can I ask one question about back to the Sportsplex, how did you factor that in since it's not, I mean, did you just look at similar facilities of that size? How did you factor that in?
So that was given to us as an approved development. Let's see. There are 9 soccer fields that are located there, and so we can use trip generation numbers for the sportsplex and then distribute that onto our site intersections also. And we'll take the numbers, the traffic volumes from that development and pass them through all of the study intersections and add that to the existing traffic and then the site traffic for this project.
So there's a catalog that has soccer field, this means.
Yes.
And you just take those numbers and just plug them in? Okay, got it.
Yes.
Elaborate just a minute, if you will, about existing conditions, background traffic, and then future build versus not future build, how that works into the study too, if you would, please.
Sure. Existing traffic is kind of what it sounds like. It's the traffic that's out there. We took traffic counts in September, put out tubes, cameras, and actually count the number of cars that are making the turning movements at our study intersections. The background traffic would be taking any approved developments like the Sportsplex and either looking at the trip generation by that development or a approved TIA that they might have also, applying that. In this case, it was just the sports complex that we looked at. And then we also include a standard, approved growth rate, and we can look at traffic, historical traffic from NCDOT on the roadways to determine what that growth rate is. So some areas, like this area, has about a 1% historical growth rate, and that's what's used to project traffic into the future. I believe the future year was 2031. Yes, 2031. So we have 1% annual growth rate per year up till 2031, and that's added on top. So that covers, more developments that we might not have approved right now, but that will be in the area or that are nearby, and traffic that's just general traffic growth on the roadways. So that's what we call our no build. It means this particular site is a growth in the area. Our build traffic adds on top of those numbers the site traffic from this particular development.
Thank you.
Did your analysis include anything other than traffic counts, such as horizontal, vertical, curve, sight distance?
Don't think that site distance was included for this particular.
I didn't see it anywhere, I read it in there, but I'm assuming that's where DOT came up with the southbound, coming down that hill. When you get right in at the bottom of the vertical curve, it's limited sight distance. I could see where it would be. Maybe the numbers may not warrant it, but I think the approach does.
That could be it.
Was there any discussion about having a left turn into Newbern off of Zoo Parkway? We've got a left turn with a 100-foot stack down there going into the site.
A northbound
Next road
left
up,
turn?
the next road up, Newbern, has a lot of,
There's not, and that's because if you're coming from the south, traveling north, and you want to get to this site, you would turn at Site Access 1.
Right.
It wouldn't be terribly logical to go further north to turn left and come back around.
well, I guess I'm thinking more of a sportsplex type issue, and somebody sitting there wanting to turn left. And if you get certain traffic during certain times of the day, it can stack up, and you are coming up a hill also. I know we can't put it everywhere, but that would be more practical than the one out there 2 miles away. This-
Thank you.
Continuing on. Again, you've seen this. This is the updated site plan that is in your package. And I will go ahead and answer one question, if I may. The question that came about regarding building proximity to floodplains. There will be a 30-foot wide buffer on either side of the stream. In addition, the floodplain is much wider than that in some places. We have no lots located within the floodplain. So not only the building pads, but our entire lots will be located outside of the floodplain that will be surveyed and located.
What do you anticipate the floor levels being above how far above the lowest area?
The site has a tremendous amount of topo on it. We will have no issue getting several feet above that floodplain level. Okay. And again, this is a better view of the site plan from a proximity. Let me point out here, the thin blue line running through the center is the stream. There's a 30-foot stream buffer on either side. The darker green area that you see is a conservation area. And then the lighter green hatch areas that you see here are common open space. All of that will be owned and maintained by the HOA. And I will come back and elaborate on that in just a few moments. quick flashback again, this was the plan that was submitted to the planning board, and I'm going to focus in now on what was the upper left-hand corner right there at the school. There was a lot of discussion at on September 5th at the planning board meeting, and the question came to us from a local resident that said, what can we do that makes this better? There's an overhead power line, there's a natural stream going through there. What can we do to make this better? And we committed that we would take a deeper, harder look at that, and that is why we have come up with what you see right here. This is an improved alignment, and Trevor hit on this just a little bit. This creates much improved separation from the adjacent parcel. This creates a better site to protect the stream, for one thing. We have a better, more perpendicular crossing of the stream, so it's a better environmental impact. And also the feature of the overhead power line. We're not affecting that nearly to the extent that it was in that earlier plan. And again, it's overall a better roadway alignment. If you extend straight through New Bern Avenue, it's almost, it's a gentle bend to the right rather than a hard hook road back to the right. So we did hear what was spoke in the planning board meeting. We did respond, and this is the better layout that we have as a result of that. So I just wanted to highlight that. This is just a bit of housekeeping, if I could. Open space calculation. In your plan, there is a mistype number. Your plan shows that there is, I think, 67% or 60-something% open space. That is not correct, and it was brought to my attention yesterday. Open space includes buffers, conservation areas, and the common areas, all those green spaces that I just mentioned a moment ago. If you look, the corrected number on that cover sheet in the site data table should say 34.89 acres, and that is 37% of the site. So we have 37% of open space. I just want everybody to fully understand there was a mistake on the previous submittal, and I just wanted to air that out and make sure that we're corrected on that. We are committed to amenities on the site. That was a big part of our discussion as well at our planning, at our community meeting in the planning board. We are committed to pickleball courts, a dog park, and a community garden. The trail system that you've seen in all of these, again, would also be maintained by the HOA. We are going to team with True Homes as our builder, selected builder for this project. We've done a great deal of work for them. I'm going to give just a little bit of overview of True Homes. They're privately owned. They're located in Monroe, North Carolina, headquartered in Monroe. They're the 2019, let me get my terminology correct here. National Housing Quality Gold Recipient Award, thank you, and the 2020 National Home Builders of the Year. Nationally recognized in Charlotte as a top workplace for their employees. And this is probably the key. They are an industry-leading client satisfaction at 95% of their clients are willing to refer them as their builder. So that is very impressive, and that's why we have selected them. They operate in Charlotte, the Triad, Raleigh, Wilmington, and Charleston. In the Triad market alone, last year they closed just over 325 units with an average sale price of $375,000. Currently in the Triad, they've been here for 11 years. They've got 8 active communities, 4 coming soon, and 10 in the planning stages. And what is also important is their civic responsibilities. They take that very, very seriously. They give back. There is a true foundation that they've established so that for every 500 homes they close, they donate a home. There's one that's being donated in the Triad. This is a City Lights Ministry for single moms. In 2017, they offered or donated one for the Battered Women's Shelter. In 21, Veterans Homeowners Program. And in 22, they donated a home for the Whole Man Ministries. A couple other programs they have are Community Hero Homes and Doorway to Prosperity. I won't dig too deep into those. Probably what's more important right now, these are just 4 renderings, just 4 of many, many renderings, front elevation opportunities that will be established, a streetscape of single-family homes, and you also saw this earlier, representative of the attached single-family homes, the townhomes as well. Mr. Mayor, I can continue, or I can take any questions that you have right now.
don't know at what point we're gonna address the, conditions. We're gonna wait
Okay.
for your, have those been,
Yeah, let me, okay, so the staff, in your report, you'll see this, number one, we're very pleased with staff and the efforts that they make to guide us through this process. You'll see that staff believes the proposed zoning amendment is reasonable and in the public interest, subject to the acceptance of the staff suggested conditions or your council-approved conditions. You'll hear those probably referred to as A through Z plus 3. There's double A, double B, and double C in all of those conditions. Let it be known that we, the development team, do accept those proposed conditions as defined in the staff report. The planning board heard that earlier this week, and we're also very pleased that they found it supportive. They provided their support with a unanimous decision on Monday of this week.
Mr. Ross, would you accept the recommendations number 1, 2, and 3 is in the NCDOT letter?
Yes, sir. I would love the opportunity to discuss with DOT the 1.75 mile away turn lane, but the 1 through 3, yes, sir, we would accept those.
Number 4's, well,
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. We indeed would accept
it's a
those, yes,
reach,
sir.
to say the least. But 1, 2, and 3, I think are pertinent and relevant.
Yes, sir.
Whether that be DDEEFF.
Yes, we
Is
would.
that phrased correctly?
That will work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Nuttall, is your list complete?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if there are members of the public that have things to say that we need to respond to, I'll be certainly glad to do so. Otherwise, I'll step down.
Any other questions?
Whenever you're finished, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind having Mr. Nuttall go over some of those conditions so the public can hear what has been agreed to.
Give us a
Make yourself comfortable.
quick synopsis.
Yes, sir. So there were reference to staff's recommended conditions that have been in the staff report for quite a while. A lot of these are technical in nature and meant to memorialize what was presented to the board to ensure that whatever entity actually develops a property, whether it be True Homes or a different developer, as you know, your approvals aren't specific to a particular builder. So whoever were to develop the site would be subject to compliance with the site plan as well as these conditions. So a lot of these seek to ensure that that's exactly what happens. Again, I've highlighted things in yellow that we think are particularly of interest, probably to the public, but all of these are conditions that would that have just been accepted by the applicant in addition to those traffic improvements. One of we wanted to highlight the fact that in our condition, there's still the need for a driveway permit, obviously, for the project. And so at the appropriate time, before the city were to issue any type of local approvals for the project, there are certain things that we would be looking for from an applicant. In this case, importantly, that driveway permit, and in this case, we would be looking for it to be consistent with those DOT stipulations 1 through 3, in addition to whatever else the state may ultimately determine is warranted, as well as the necessary permitting from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality as it pertains to site grading and erosion control measures. Before we authorize any of that, any development, we would be looking for the necessary state permits and approvals beforehand. Again, if you quickly look through these, you know, a lot of these are again, technical in nature. I will point out there is not a designated recreational vehicle storage area. That's something that the code talks about and applicants can build and provide, but in lieu of a designation for a recreational vehicle storage area, the code says that they need to be prohibited, and that condition is O there. We did not talk about that in particular detail. Stormwater, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. We have asked that 10-year storm retention be a part of this project, except for one caveat, and that being that should a professional engineer provide the city with a report and supporting documentation that a 10-year retention would actually make worse downstream stormwater impacts due to just the way the property is configured, the floodway, the creeks on the property. If there were a scenario that by instituting those 10-year retention standards, it actually could make things worse, we would like the opportunity to review that report. And if the city concurs with that finding, there could be a discussion of what other mitigative strategies can be used other than a 10-year retention. So condition Q has been modified slightly just to allow some flexibility, because at the end of the day, we don't want to stick to a condition that both the city and a property owner believe would be harmful post-construction. So that is what Q says in a nutshell. Condition S, every rendering we have seen has included at a minimum a garage capable of holding one passenger vehicle and at least one additional off-street parking space. So we have captured that in these conditions. We acknowledge that there is still floodplain permitting to be done, and that would happen at the appropriate time following the more of the engineering and design work if the project does get approved. Condition Z seeks to ensure that that crossing between the north and the south side of Estill Creek occurs. And we don't want to get to the situation where we get development on both sides and lots start to happen, and then for whatever reason we come to determine that we can't make that crossing. So this condition, as it's written, would basically limit subdivision phases and platting to one or the other side of the stream until that connection has been made available. So we want to ensure, we think that's an important crossing for the streets, for the city street network. That's what condition Z does. Condition AA and BB talk about an additional stub to adjoining property owners, to additional properties that we think are needed to ensure that our street network can continue to be expanded. Again, these are public streets, curb and gutter, sidewalk, 28-foot face-to-face streets. That means we're looking for how can development grow the city street network. That's it in a nutshell. Mr. Ross mentioned that both the planning board and the staff do present this to you with positive recommendations subject to those conditions that have been accepted. Our rationale is provided up on the screen. It's been in the report. We've discussed it at the planning board, and I'll submit it for the record here this evening.
Question for you, Trevor, just the standards have several, and the drawings are a little ambiguous, but it appears that it's a 28-foot face-to-face curb and gutter CD standard street.
Yes, sir.
With standard curb and gutter or valley curb and gutter?
I don't remember what the ultimate,
Most true home developments, they use the valley because you can place the curb cut wherever you want to.
and that is a city, yeah, that is either or accepted.
No mistakes, it's the better thing for these dense subdivisions.
Yeah. And both are allowable under the city standards.
Very good.
I have one question again about the stormwater situation. There is going to be a professional study about on this water situation, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I live in that area all my life. Those streams really run some water when they get going.
Sure.
Okay, so there will be that study, and nothing will be done until we get that study, is that right?
Yes, that condition that's been accepted says there will either be a 10-year storm retention built into the project, or we will have been convinced that that would worsen conditions, and we will look for other ways to try to mitigate those impacts.
Will you come back to us after that?
As it's written, it is submitted for staff's review. Certainly, whatever decision, if that condition stands as it is, whatever decision would be made could be appealed by any entity withstanding. So as it's written, that report would be submitted to the city's professional staff. We would consult with our engineering staff and make a determination of whether that's a reasonable finding and conclusion. If we determine that and agree with it, that would be it, unless the matter were to be appealed.
And they can't get a grading permit without a DEQ and erosion control environmental.
Right, correct, yeah.
Submitted approved plan.
Sure. So, no, but a good question. It is, as it's written, it would be handled at the administrative level between the professional staff.
Questions?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak to this request for the applicants?
Yes, sir.
All right. Come on up, sign the book, please.
Yes, I'm Dr. Bruce Simmons, and I'm one of the lots that keep showing up in the pictures. And I'd like to start off the good news and bad news, of course. I'd like to thank the developers. From what I saw originally to what I'm seeing tonight, it's almost like I had to send them a consulting bill. They've listened, they've done lots of good things, and so I think you deserve praise in front of the whole community for the way you've done things. It's just been nice, okay? The fire department, they've done their role. In fact, they came to the house the other night, so I'm sure they did the stopwatches because I was concerned about when fires start, how fast they would do. So the fire department's done some testing. The city, I believe, you've committed to like a third fire department place that can handle all the issues that were concerning to me, so I appreciate that very much. The school system, the study that they did isn't, if they'd done it a different time, they might have got a different result. The school system was phenomenal. For years, we had the 300 and 400 cars, the hour and a half in the morning, in the afternoon. You couldn't get in and out. There's no way police department, fire trucks, or EMSs were coming through. So the school system did whatever that they did, and they shrunk it. There's only 150 cars, and it's like 45 minutes. So as long as the school system continues the shrinking, there won't be the problems that I saw with all the massive things. I hear rumors, because I don't know this fact, that the one school board was going to have a pull-off driveway, but we wouldn't have ever had the problem. But it had elections, and the new school board didn't want to spend the money to pull off a driveway where all the cars wouldn't be sitting on the two roads that make the intersection, and we would have never had this issue in the first place. So the school district is able to move and to do things. Maybe they'll put in the off-street parking. I don't know with the 300, 400 houses, well, all the students, how big Teachee School has to get, or whether they're going to do a separate school. So the school district has a lot of planning to do, but at least for the traffic study that was done, it was done after the school district eliminated most of the traffic. So hooray for the school district. It's nice to live there without all the traffic. The city employees, chatting with them, they all deserve kudos. They've been wonderful. City council, the planning. It's been a pleasant, maybe contentious, but it's been pleasant. There's been a lot of positive things happen. Now, if I can, there's a lot of things in there that I asked for that are there, which is wonderful. So that's the good news, but I'd like to ask for just a little bit more. There's always just that little bit more. The rain we had the other day was not a common rain, I hope, but under Zoo Parkway, there are these two ginormous 10, 15-foot, I'm not going to climb down in the water to measure them, so I don't know what they are. But the rainstorm we got, there was so much water coming through the ravines, the unnamed tributaries, the creek, there was about a softball's worth of space left, or the road would have become a dam, and another 12, 24 inches, whatever it is, the water would have been flowing over the Zoo Parkway. So with 300-400 more houses coming with the roads, there's less ground for ponds to hold the water back. there's gonna be a higher volume of water. So Zoo Parkway will probably either have to go bigger culverts, extra culverts, a bridge to be able to handle the stream where they're gonna be bringing the driveway in. But I understand that's state taxpayers' cost, and it won't be the city that's building the road and all those kind of things. So that's not what you're being asked to look at. Lot F, which would be an adjacent lot to the house. I'm glad you took the pictures after I mowed the yard. It looks good. Lot F, for my neighbor, I'd like for it to be not buildable. It's his septic system that's on Lot F. Whatever the cost is to put it in the city sewer and everything, it goes right by his house, and I don't know all the details. But Lot F is when they built the house 10, 20, 30 years ago. His septic system is in Lot F. It's a half-acre lot. It's down the hill. It's probably on a 40-degree angle for the hill. It's kind of nice. It's like sand. You can actually, like you go to the ocean, you can get the ski and you can go down the sand hills. That's the kind of dirt that's on that lot, but that's also his septic system. So being my brother's keeper, I'd like Lot F not to be developed so that you don't mess with my neighbor's septic system. The culverts I mentioned, a lake, where I once built a house that the power structure insisted that there be a dry hydrant in the spring-fed lake that was my front yard. Part of my issue, making things for the people who live here, myself, my new neighbors that are going to be funded by the federal government to $360,000 a house. Be nice if there was a lake, had dry hydrants, so if a fire occurs, you don't have to send the fire trucks back, fill them up. They're right there on site. They can run their hoses over, and they can refill their tanker trucks. And you're saving minutes, which when you have a house on fire, makes a difference between people being alive, people being injured, people being dead, a house being rescued, a house being burnt to the ground.
Back up a notch, Bruce. Where you want a fire hydrant?
A dry hydrant in a lake. There's plenty of places to put lakes, and engineers are bright enough to know how to do it. But you have all that water that could be captured that could be in 1 or 2 or 3 lakes on the property. You put in the plastic dry hydrants, however the fire department wants it done.
The county departments do that. I don't know that the city departments do. I'd have to defer to Chief Summers.
Okay, but
If they use that type of water in their trucks, I do not do that.
so I'm asking, just because where I moved from,
Yeah.
that was what was common in the county and the parts of the county that were becoming in the city, was to make sure there was large volumes of water readily available for the department on site. So we save lives and we save houses.
I've got one on my water tower out in the county. See?
So-
Go back to the Sandfield, the Lot F.
Mhm.
Charles Chandler's lot.
Yes, sir. He's one of the 4 sons that own, they're selling part of the farm to the developers.
If I'm reading the map right, it's not part of our request. I don't know that we have any purview to.
Well, with the new development,
He's going to get Chief Summers.
Okay.
so
We're scaring the bow out of all these questions.
no problem. You guys have all been wonderful. Kudos all around. This has not been,
My question was whether or not we had any jurisdiction relative to a request over it. Chief Summers. Does the city, utilize any, access points to, I think dry hydrants to pump from ponds or lakes?
Now, once it comes into the city, we will maintain a water line and will not use dry hydrants.
Okay.
We do not use dry hydrants in the city.
okay.
Thank you.
So that will not be a challenge for us.
And our water lines are sized to cover any fire emergency.
Exactly. It would accommodate any fire or
We
emergency.
got more water than we got trucks.
Yes. Well said.
How you got that?
I think that was the question.
Okay.
Chief, thank you.
Send Trevor back in here when you go out.
It's, thank you, safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had a house, we burned down a house once upon a time, and the fire was so intense that the barn, 150 feet away, was gonna go up. They're putting all these houses close by, so it starts, it's gonna burn, fire department, water, and then it's gonna spread and spread and spread. And it's just safety in people's lives. That's what I was interested in to start with.
And we didn't say it wouldn't happen.
We said we had the water.
We said we have the water,
When it happens.
municipal water system to cover it.
So the,
The east side will respond additionally if we were to need the help. But Trevor, on lot F, the Charles Chandler.
one in back, down there.
It asked about, some possible restrictions on that lot. My question was, if the lot's not part of this request, what jurisdiction do we have to?
That is accurate. That property is outside the boundaries of this application, so there really could be no conditions imposed on that property as a part of this application.
And if it's not served by city sewer, then the septic tank takes it out of, the septic field takes it out of play anyway.
Okay.
I mean, the potential, I think, for that lot at some point down the road to have access on a future public street could occur with this project. But if there was interest in ensuring that lot owned by, I'm not,
Charles Chandler.
He's one of,
Charles Chandler, owned by Charles Chandler, were not to be developed, we would not, there was no mechanism to do that.
Well, and to be fair, as far as a default to your request, I'm not seeing any sort of right-of-way or access for him to get to city sewer, so he can't build on it now.
okay. I'm just trying to make people happy and safe in my neighborhood, including myself. So far, this has been,
I can imagine.
and so the last thing that I would talk is, on this property, you have, some call it a hill, some call it different names where we come from, we have different sized mountains or whatever. But near the top, there are apparently some rock formations, beautiful view out over the countryside that you can get from there. And this is a question for the developers. Is that going to be blown up, dynamite hauled away, or is that park, those rocks, climbing rocks, is that gonna be an area that'd be like a park for the folks in the neighborhood to enjoy? Is that one of the things that they'd included in their development?
As far as the engineering design of the roadway and the grading of the individual lots, that's to be determined. Obviously, if there's something too big to move, it may have to be blasted. Blasting will take place with all the appropriate measures with everything that's done around it, but it could be left along where it's at, depending on its size and the developability around it.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Anyone else opposed?
Go on up, Mr. Chandler.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here Monday I came here to see, hoping to see the project my brother's been talking about. I live a little further away in Pennsylvania, but I was anticipating looking at this and really being very pleased. And I know that it is a challenging property, very challenging in terms of water runoff and the topography, and also the just general configuration has its challenges as well. But when I first looked at this, I was, I'm gonna go from sort of general to 3 points, and that is the first of which is that I was disappointed at it just looked like it was shot with buildings. And it seemed like that there is some agenda or restriction or some desire on the part of developers to have just 2 types of buildings, basically. I mean, you've got the single-family project, and then you've got the townhouses, and I thought that ought to be just begging for something in between. Something to break up that staccato look of it up and down the slopes. I want to continue with that the main problem with this is the overall density of the project. There is nothing in this area that comes close. As a matter of fact, I understand from your planning department, there's really nothing like it in the county. And the only thing close to it is something that's been recently approved for, is it Humble Mill project that is still in the works as far as being developed, I believe. But that project, while it's about twice the size of this project in land area, it has half the houses, half the development. And I think that this project certainly begs to be considered along those same lines. I'm looking for something here, but the most egregious looking thing, now understand that I'm an architect, and I have 4 brothers, and all of us have some portion of this. I have just a very minor portion of this, and was pleased to see it come along, at least that the builders came along and the developers had some agreement of things. But the appearance and character of these buildings are totally different from anything around there. And not, unfortunately, it's not on the ante hadn't been upped. I know that the final development of these houses is to be determined by others, apparently. But what you show us, I mean, there are paint stores that are more interesting in layouts than what you see in some of these houses. These houses are on 4,000 square feet of land. You have a house that you're saying is somewhere in the area of 1,200 square feet or more. Then you've got a parking pad that's another 400 or 500 square feet. Basically, what you've got is half the property, half the lot size is impervial surface. Now, Mr. Simmons spoke about the runoff. Well, I was down there about 6 o'clock in the morning the other morning after I'd been in Winston-Salem after the major part of the storm. And it was about 14 inches down from the top of that culvert. And I'm telling you, that is an issue that's going to have to be dealt with. And just think of what the water is backing up, just what it's doing all the way 100 yards up that creek. And as we know, that whole creek, Vestal Creek, will flood even into the pasture lands and bottomlands of my brother Butch here, and it'll be as much as 75 yards wide. It's a tremendous amount of water. And so, unfortunately, with our red clay soil, it's just not going much of anywhere except laterally. So that is a overriding concern. And then the third point that we've talked about the character of the houses. We're talking about the topography and the runoff capabilities that are challenges here. And the most unfortunate thing is the density. You realize that the density of this one project is more than the number of houses that you're proposing is more than all the houses in Carolina Hills, plus Sykes Farm, plus Pine Grove across Huber, is it
Pinecroft.
Pinecroft. Been away from a little while. Also, is it Laurel? The next one down is Laurel, including that, and Brownmar Village. So all that is right at a little less than 350 houses. And this is an overwhelming concern of mine, and I think it will be, once this is happening, will be of others. We are from a textile background. We are, I say we, this community. And furniture, of course. I'm not slighting anybody there, but I just look at these houses and you wonder, is this going back to the days of, it gives you the impression they're almost like mill houses. And I don't want to see us go back there. They have no room to move, they have no room to put a kayak, they have no room, except for this garage, which is gonna be chock full of everything. No room for an ATV, no room for anything that is what normal people would normally have on a standard half-acre lot, which most of these areas, houses have. I have done a lot of lot layouts in my history and worked on Tiga K of the Irving Company, Raintree, about 3 or 4 other major projects of this Charlotte developer. The Irving Company at that time was the 5th largest builder in the United States. I have done probably 1,000 lot plans in a matter of 4 or 5 months. I've worked on projects as sophisticated as the vet school in Raleigh, spent 3.5 years there. So I know how important all these engineering concerns are and threading this needle to make this work. But you seriously handicap your capability to create the project that this city deserves, these neighbors deserve, your constituents, your voters, and they want to see something that is upping the ante. And I just don't see it in this project. Most of these houses go out of the way to have a certain amount of brick. We are from a brick state. This is a brick community. We'll see anything there. You've got, I know there's some clone stone and brick and stuff, but it's basically just a facade of one side or another, and that's it. You could peel it off. So I just think that, and I appreciate what Mr. Simmons said, that there has been improvement. I've seen improvement now that I've had a chance a couple of days here to immerse myself in the project since I've been here, waiting for this meeting. And I just think that it would do this town and community and county a lot of good to see it more in keeping with its neighbors around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I've got a question for Trevor. Earlier, I believe I followed you to say that in calculating this sort of cluster home type development, that we calculate the total permissible less the right-of-ways.
Correct.
And come up with a number, and the number's not to exceed that with the
Correct.
cluster.
Yep, that's right.
And then pass that test.
Yes.
It's tough to, I mean, I understand that, and I realize you can make those numbers work. But you look at that, I don't know how we get to the plan, where it shows all the units.
We can go back to whatever you want to see.
He wants all the row houses.
The townhouses?
The row houses.
Trevor, can you back the video, the slides up to
One
the
thing, you know,
Picture?
I'll give you a
tax
little
homes?
minor, and it's the principle I'm talking about. I realize that there's no way that the zoning here can apply in this case because it's a law. But you may all remember when you went to Beach Mountain when you were younger and big skiers or whatever. And then once upon a time, this developer decided to build a big building on top of that mountain. Well, they had to change laws in the state to make sure that didn't happen again. This doesn't apply, but I'm just saying that those townhouses up there on that ridge is offensive to me as someone that has spent undergraduate and graduate degrees looking at aesthetics and trying to make something to up the ante and to crown that hill and at the same time potentially obliterate some outstanding natural rock formations. Some of them are as big as a bus.
Well,
To not somehow to creatively, and I don't know how much they've walked that land, but it looks like the planning has been done from, with a limited regard of the topography of that property. Because you've got roads running up and down that like it is it's not going to be. I realize all this stuff is going to go through further down the road. But you're going to have some major problems going up there because you've got a good 40% grade in certain parts.
well, the topo's included in the drawing.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, that you see that road running up and down.
Is your intention to balance the site?
It is. I mean, so you're intending on using, as you mentioned earlier, those two areas that they're talking about, the raised areas and stuff like that, I would assume it's your intention, if you're balancing the site, you'll be taking that down.
If it's reasonable, yes. If there are large rock outcroppings that prohibit reasonableness.
Right, well,
Those are, but yeah.
Okay.
As we get into the construction document phase of the project, we'll certainly take all of that into consideration.
But that would be your original, I mean, I'm a contractor too, and that would be my intention
Right.
if I had to balance the site.
Yes,
And,
yes, leave the tree buffer around the perimeter.
Sure, yeah.
So that you're not looking at houses on a pinnacle, but there's still a stand of trees that exist there. Yes.
Okay. I got a question for Christian. The stormwater runoff, I know you're talking about retention, stormwater at a 10-year level. When that's submitted, I mean, it has been, and I haven't done one lately, I've done several of them, but it used to be when you cleared land, the water couldn't come off the land any faster than it did when it was wooded. Is that still in effect?
You want me to address the council from the podium, or?
Why don't you come up here? I mean, I'm a probably.
Christian Vestal, 150 South Fayetteville Street. And I do represent some engineering on behalf of the developer for the engineering of the project. And to address this specific question, those rules are regulated differently in different watersheds.
Okay.
This particular watershed doesn't have a stringent requirement. It's not what is called as MS4. A lot of that's driven by the state level regarding density or problematic areas or conservation areas. So nothing's required by law here, but there is a condition because of the PUD and the density that staff has said we should attenuate. And the area that they're attenuating that to is the 10-year storm. To give you a reference or point of reference, what we just had the other day was beyond a 500-year storm. You know, we don't get that quite often. You get the 100-year more often than we used to, it seems like.
Every year.
Every year. And that's where you get these floodplains lines that are on the project. That's the 100-year lines. So a lot of what we're looking at for attenuation, if the staff requires a 10-year, then what we develop to regarding a concentrated runoff that's pre-development, you've got a coefficient of like 0.2. That is to say there's a lot of trees. Water comes off very slowly. You scrape that down to bare earth, you got a coefficient of 0.6. Water's coming off a lot quicker. You go and build impervious areas on it. You got curb and gutter, the water's moving a lot faster. Now we're like 0.9 right on the roadways. You do a weighted coefficient with the grass areas, the remaining trees. You're going to end up with a higher runoff. What we do is then translate these numbers to kind of do a pre-development versus post-development. What they're saying is that 10-year storm runoff with a peak Q, that is discharge in cubic feet per second, has to be less at the 10-year point runoff storm in the post-development as it was in the pre-development. Trevor's caveat, if you will, using the same word that he has there, is that if an engineer can prove that the delay of storm water for the 10-year storm actually, we'll say, exasperates the problem downstream, because we've got peak flows come from different areas. You've got upstream runoff that's coming down. All of it comes down, it builds up, and then we've got runoff it's here. The storm's over. But what have we done? We've attenuated 10 years worth of storm. Now we're outletting that at its peak flow. And so a study can be done, it has been done in different places, both in coastal areas and Piedmont areas, that shows the attenuation actually hurts downstream residences versus helping it. So we would use different measures on site in a proposal that says we could do channels, maybe some pockets, overland flow, dispersion, riprap aprons that, distribute into the stream buffer area. All of that would then reduce, but we'd let it go off in the first-year storm, and the 10-year storm is all leaving our site before the buildup actually comes for the big storm. So that's kind of an explanation of what the stormwater contingency was in Trevor's proposal.
And it's too early in the process to know where that's going to go.
Yeah,
right now.
that's a little bit more of a detailed study to
Yeah.
say, are we going to have to or are we not? And what
I was
years-
wondering about where the discharge was, but I know you can't determine that yet until the
yeah.
grading's done. And that's-
Pretty much at the far right point of the site would be where we would take that number from.
Okay.
I'd say it's a fair assessment. You'll lose a few lots once you have to put those devices in.
Absolutely.
That was my, yeah.
Mr. Nono, will you back up a slide or two and show us those 4 examples of single-family homes? There. Now, that one is 2-car garage, right?
That's what that appears, yes.
That's the largest one. All right,
No,
show us.
it's not, because I'm very familiar with this one. I'm very familiar with that
We have
one.
a family member that lives in one of those.
And trust me, it is not the biggest house in that neighborhood.
We spend a lot of time talking about adequate parking. No street parking, because once somebody starts parking on the street, they will park on the street all the time as a matter of rule, as a matter of habit. When you got a narrow driveway and a single car garage, they usually keep the motorcycle in the garage and move the truck every time the wife wants to go to work, or vice versa. You know, whoever leaves first has to move so that, the other spouse can get out. And so that is one of our big stumbling blocks in improving neighborhoods, that we want adequate off-street parking for two cars side by side. And what you do with your garage, we don't care. But generally, it's gonna have a boat or a motorcycle in it. Or 3 bicycles and all their Christmas stuff. So nobody parks in a garage much anymore. I just wanna make sure that when we do approve something, if we do here, that there's adequate parking for the 2 cars that are gonna live there.
Well, there's additional common area parking in these areas. There's parallel parking on the streets. I can tell you that our city streets are wider than the typical true home development as far as parking. My experience has been that the true homes HOAs are really frown on the residents having on-street parking. But the width of our streets are wider than they typically have. But they build what's required. I mean, these developments are all over Jamestown, they're all over Guilford County, they're all over Metrolina.
And we've got cul-de-sacs where we can't turn our fire trucks around, or our knuckle bone loaders that have to back out of a dead-end street. If you wanna speak again, you need to come up to the microphone.
I just have one thing on my notes I forgot to
That's
mention.
fine, you just need to speak to the microphone.
Hello, Dr. Simmons again. Zoo Parkway. Somewhere we're bringing in, at the top of the hill by the gas station, we're going to have a new animal rendering plant. So we're gonna have the 18-wheelers. I don't imagine they're gonna be excited on Business 64, so they'll probably be coming into the zoo and coming up Zoo Parkway across past all this. So the traffic study has however many 18-wheelers a day hauling however many 100 cows to come up to.
You would think so, but, I know a fellow that owns the biggest trucking company around, and he wanted the city to regulate no trucks on Dixie Drive, so his trucks would go on the bypass. Because he wasn't gonna make his drivers drive on the bypass unless we made it.
Okay.
It's too far out of the way.
The developers of the processing facility, they've told us they can't handle 18-wheelers. They're expecting more game product than.
More pickup trucks with horse trailers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but, and along a 40-foot gooseneck's still a tractor trailer by length anyway, but we will see. But quite frankly, my hope is that the traffic on Zoo Parkway becomes utterly horrendous, so the state will build us a 4-lane road.
That's where I think we're headed.
Yeah, and the faster we can get there, the quicker we can get the road built.
Zoo Parkway needs some major improvement. All right, so I made my comment about parking. We frown upon on-street parking because it becomes a habit, a way of life.
Living in a development that has similar small lot sizes, we deal with that in our HOA covenants, saying you can't park on the street. Again, if you got a strong HOA, You know, you let your HOA, police and protect your on-street parking in that regard. You know, we did, when we first started doing it, there were a couple of people that parked out on the street. They were sent a letter and it stopped. And it does not pick back up.
And that's
again.
the way it's supposed to work, but it doesn't always work that way.
True won't let you park a trailer in your driveway, like a motorcycle trailer or a lawnmower trailer.
Well, and that's another thing for attached homes that we, address regularly. If you've got 3 or 4, townhomes attached and your neighbor parks a camper, RV, or a boat in his driveway, all the time, then nobody, the 2 neighbors on either side can't see down the street. They can't see past his driveway. And so we've outlawed that. In the subdivisions we've required over the last few years, we've required either off-site or RV parking, a dedicated RV parking lot, so that my neighbor doesn't have a boat or an RV sitting almost in front of my house that I have to look at every morning and every night when I get home.
Well, it's that or the HOA doesn't allow it, isn't that
Yeah.
correct, Trevor?
And then in that case, the HOA usually says not allowed, and some developers will set aside a fenced lot, secure lot, where they can park their RVs and their boats, or it's just up to the homeowner, the owner of that RV, to find a place around town somewhere to park it. So, and a strong HOA can do that from day one. But we also find out that many HOAs don't want to rock the boat, and they don't say what they need to say until everybody's doing it, and then they can't get anybody to stop.
Question, price range. I know somebody mentioned price, but I never heard a number. What are you anticipating? I mean, just a range. I know.
Sure.
I understand it hadn't.
Right, on the attached single family, we anticipate starting in the the 250s range up to about 300. We anticipate the detached single family homes being in the 325 to 375 range.
Okay. Thank you.
Second connection, what you told me the other day. Anybody else in the room that would like to address council? Come on up, Mr. Chandler.
I'm Wallace Jr. Butch is my nickname. I'll sign in. I'm the older of the 3 brothers. I'm 4 brothers. 3 other brothers. I have the property adjacent to this proposed development. I continue, although it's changed somewhat, I continue a cattle operation that we've had there in that farm since before Dr. Sykes had it anyway, back in the late 40s. We do, ours is beef cattle, strictly grass-fed beef. Yeah, we realize we're gonna be impacted, but we also realize that we're in the natural path of growth. I mean, there's very little we can quibble about what we might put there or whatever, but there's very little discussion about whether or not there's going to be growth in this area. In fact, in this whole area between here and the 64 and the new 64 highway. you know, there are things about it that are very different from the houses I built in the Carolina Hills subdivision. They're much smaller. But I mean, there has to be some places for smaller houses. I also have done townhouses, so I'm familiar with those. I've built townhouses. Had a project I finished just a few years ago in Southern Pines. The problems that you talked about with parking and all that sort of stuff are always a problem. I'm in favor of the project, even though it affects me probably more than any other one property owner. You know, I'm hoping that I can maintain fence lines and so forth without a lot of problems, and I think I probably can, because they've gone to some length to try to, in some places at least, to try to create a separation of buffer areas. There's some areas that are right up against my pasture line, but that's primarily just in one area in the bottom. And, you know, this bottom, they'll have to work with it. Sure, we have problems. I'm sure that whole bottom was flooded. My bottom pastures were pretty well flooded the other day. But, you know, they'll have to work it out. I mean, they'll have to work it out to put these slabs in there. They'll have to abide with the things that all the rest of us have had to deal with all these years with the environmental control measures and so forth. So I repeat, I'm in favor of the project. Thank you.
Well, there's no RV parking, right? Can't have RVs in there at all.
They don't allow.
Yeah, I mean, even by our, one of our restrictions, right? Great, anyone else?
I'll make mine quick. My name's Chris Julian. I live on Halifax Street, which is one of the streets just behind the project. If you see the upper cul-de-sac on the map there, just go up a few lots there. I do know why there was probably low attendance at the community meeting, because the adjacent property owners were invited. Some of those of us in the tertiary areas, you know, were just kind of privy to this here recently, so that was probably a reason for the low outcome. I've lived in this house I'm 49 years old. I've lived in this house for 45 years. It was my parents. The Chandlers built it. You know, they built the houses. They built great houses. They had great lots. My dad, stepdad, Max Frazier, was one of the first guys that bought a property from them in 1970 when they were building houses in Carolina Hills, and they were spectacular. And so much so that whenever he wanted to sell it, I decided I would make him an offer and see if I could buy it from him and live there. So the only really issue and the only really question I have is regarding attachment 1, RZ 2314, number 11. And that's where it says, the neighborhood residential designation of the property is described by the land development plan's category description as intended to, quote, to accommodate existing medium-density single-family residential neighborhoods while encouraging new neighborhoods of similar density to provide a greater sense of community. I'm assuming I'm one of the existing medium-density neighborhood communities. And just in my opinion and my view of this, and I felt I would be remiss not to say this, this doesn't seem to be similar to that density. And that's just really all I have to say, and just would encourage thought about considering the density of this. Thank you.
Trevor, do you need to go through any of the mechanics? You got anything else you need to add?
I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think I've covered,
We have three medium density designations, is that correct?
we have two medium, we have R7.5 and R10. That is, I will say, one of the more challenging aspects of our role is to take a very, complex document with lots of different goals and policies, some of which at times seem to be competing, and render a recommendation for the public. In this case, and I think we acknowledge it in the report, that this is above those densities of adjacent residential neighborhoods. But in our view, at least, some of the elements that have been incorporated into the project that would not otherwise be there, stormwater controls, pedestrian elements, other things that are being done, open space preservation. While this is more dense, and at least in our view, there are other aspects of the city's adopted plans that are being advanced through the project, and that's how we come to the recommendation that we did.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, because of having to go back and forth, Mr. Nuttall really didn't go over the consistency statement analysis in the report, and it does get into this issue. And before you get into the deliberative phase, it would be helpful if he would explicitly address the report's consistency statement
Sure.
from the staff.
So on the final page of the written rezoning staff report, under staff's, I'm sorry. On the final page of the written rezoning staff report, under the final analysis concerning consistency, that was one of the slides that I had up here earlier, but I did not read it verbatim. In our view, the plan has anticipated medium-density residential development on this property since that plan was first adopted in 2000, and then refreshed and readopted with some changes in 2015. So for that amount of time, in our view, the plan has been advocating for growth into this and other areas at a medium-density residential scale. In our view, the application includes several design characteristics that the plan advocates, including mixed housing options. We have various housing styles and types that are with this application. That is something the plan talks about. There is open space and sensitive land preservation. Those are things that we could not guarantee would happen under a traditional R10 or R7.5 development under the city codes, as well as recreational amenities that are included in the project, and a street network that provides important internal and external connectivity, as well as sidewalks that we believe are important when we're reaching a density of this level. We have the TIA. It's been reviewed by DOT. In our report at the time we wrote it, you will read in here, we were saying ultimately the state will dictate that. There's been conditions proposed and accepted that go on to implement those DOT recommendations fully, minus the zoo connector right turn lane. And so finally, while we acknowledge the requested district seeks densities at the upper limits of the medium density designation under the city codes, and we acknowledge approval will authorize development that's more dense, we believe it's designed in a manner that does provide the necessary buffers and separation between those existing neighborhoods, and thereby increases compatibility, leading to our recommendation to approve.
Trevor, and two of the three items that are against that, one is the topography and one is the floodplain.
Correct.
Which is most of Randolph County.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna have to cut this off in a minute, but you go right ahead one more time.
Again, I'm Richard Chandler. I wanted to just confirm, is there a walking trail around the crown of this hill? Is there anything approaching that area of the rocks that we're talking, the boulders? There's nothing even to get up there unless you're just walking up the street, I guess. Is that correct?
That's correct. On this plan, it's sidewalk accessible at this point, but no walking trail at that point.
That's just a tremendous missed opportunity. And as far as the open space that we talk about has been preserved, you have no choice but to preserve it, because if you walk in that area, for the most part, the green area, over the next month or two, you may not have to get someone to come pull you out, because you will be in quicksand. It is that treacherous in terms of negotiating. You've got a bog of an old dam and lake there. You've got, I just think that I see precious little open space for, you talk about this dog park, I realize streets are that, but that little space there for gardening and a dog park and pickleball is just very tempting for a project of 350 houses.
Thanks, sir.
Mayor, can I ask a question of Mr. Ross?
You go right ahead.
We've discussed, on-street parking, and it's not specifically in any of the conditions. Is that something that the applicant would consider as having no on-street parking in development?
We will have a very strong HOA. We will also be providing 2 parking spaces for each single-family home, each townhouse. We anticipated, based on conversations with Mr. Nuttall, that we would have 1 in the garage, 1 in the driveway, but we did add additional parking for that would be parallel and off-street parking for that as well.
Are you representing True Homes also, or just?
No, they are a partner of ours in this.
Okay.
Yes.
Would True Homes be willing to exclude RVs and recreational vehicles?
Yes, sir. We will make sure that that's in the HOA. Whether they're our builder or not, we, the developer, will make sure that RVs or on-site parking of boats and RVs will be prohibited.
Okay.
Trevor, that was covered in the original condition.
Yeah, and there is a condition to that effect.
I thought I saw it in there. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on that.
I just want to make sure, yeah.
Let me ask a question, another question. I've never lived with HOA. If there is a flooding issue in some of these lots, who is going to be responsible to handle that? Is it HOA, the individual owner of the property, or the city?
The common areas will be owned by the HOA. Correct me if I'm wrong, city stormwater administrator, be it a third-party engineer, would be doing any assessment. If there's a flooding issue, I mean, it would be an HOA issue, enforceable by city code enforcement.
Okay. HOA would be responsible to
Yes, sir.
handle that. Okay.
And if it involves a street, that would be DOT?
We would anticipate the city would, following construction and our acceptance, would maintain these streets. These would be anticipated to be city-maintained streets. But that is where our maintenance responsibility would end, in terms of any stormwater maintenance as it relates to any type of enforcement issues that may be occurring. While we wouldn't be maintaining anything beyond those areas, we would still have authority to seek to resolve issues.
All right. The example would be that culvert that we've talked about 2 or 3 times tonight. If it were to undercut, if the 100-year flood that happens every other month now were to undercut that and float it up out of the street, that would be a street issue.
If it's a culvert for Zoo Parkway, it'll be a DOT issue. If it's a culvert for that crossing or any type of structure related to that crossing there.
True, any city street.
It would be, right. But the key will be during the engineering phase and our review and inspection of that to make sure that it's done in a manner that we don't anticipate there being a problem down the road. But in that instance of that crossing between the phases, we would anticipate that area within the right-of-way to be city responsibility.
Okay, council, we've heard a lot of discussion tonight, pro and con. I'll ask, for whatever your thoughts might be regarding this request.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement and explanation provided by staff, I move that we approve the consistency statement and the rezoning request, subject to the enumerated conditions in the report, together with the three recommendations, 1 through 3 of the traffic engineering study that are amenable to the applicant.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Moffett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, this is the appointed time for the public comment period. Is anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address the council regarding any items of public concern or business? Everybody rush at once. All right, we will move on to item 7, the consent agenda. Council, you have in front of you the proposed consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Ms. Heath to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Sherman, I believe you're item 8. You have a couple items for Zoo City Sportsplex.
I believe I scared everybody away.
That's been something you said.
Couldn't possibly be sitting there 2 hours and 15 minutes doing.
This piece of cake compared to Bucky's.
At 8 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
Piece of cake compared to Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
I love Bucky's jerky.
True.
Mayor, City Council, I am here tonight to present for your consideration a proposed facility use agreement with the YMCA and the City of Asheboro. Just give a little history, just to back up just a little bit. As you might recall, in your August meeting, Council passed a partnership resolution between the city and the YMCA for the Sportsplex. And then that following month in September, we addressed amending the Asheboro Cultural and Recreation Services Policy Manual to take in effect those changes. In that partnership resolution, it did call for the city to reimburse the YMCA for management expenses related to the running of their Challenge Soccer program. And it also called to provide for funding to the YMCA for marketing and promotion of tournaments and events. Following that adoption of the resolution in August, city and YMCA staff did meet, tried multiple times to quantify what was an appropriate level of funding to meet those requests. After not being able to reach a consensus on that funding level, the YMCA in early December did submit a revised document. This time it was described as a shared services agreement. Staff reviewed that. We did make suggestions just to cover some areas that we thought were a little vague, to get a little more definition. And one of those changes was to change it to a facility use agreement. That's why it's called a facility use agreement here. And I just want to cover the 4 main differences between what you approved in August and this updated agreement for your consideration. The first being the addition of the YMCA facilitating a adult recreational soccer league at the Sportsplex. Also, the addition of the YMCA being able to create and facilitate a maximum of 3 tournaments throughout the year to be held at the Sportsplex. And since this is now a facility use agreement versus a partnership, a time frame was added so that it can be reevaluated and looked at on a continual basis for any changes that need to be made. And then there is no longer any reference to having to provide additional funding from the city to the YMCA. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time that you might have. If you do choose to adopt this facility use agreement, next month we will need to address the policy manual to fix those differences.
And Mr. Mayor, I apologize for nothing. Before we go any further, Mr. Swears does serve on the board for the Y, so there needs to be.
You told me that, and I forgot all about it.
No problem.
I need a motion to, recuse, Mr. Swears from this discussion.
Mayor, I move we excuse Mr. Swears for discussion from this item.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath, to recuse, Councilman Swears from this discussion based on the fact that he serves on the executive committee at the Y. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You can sit right there for a couple minutes. Sir.
Keep my mouth shut.
Yep. All right, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
Oh, I've turned it to you for any questions you may have.
My fault.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
If I'm reading this correct, there is and this does nothing to do with the Y, this is the Asheboro City Football Club, and they have priority on weekends, February through May and August through December, on fields 5 through 8.
Now, the football club, but that's,
It says, per facility use agreement, the Challenge Soccer Program, currently known as the Asheboro City Football Club, following the schedule of city-sanctioned events, will have prioritized use of fields 5 through 8 to practice year-round on weekdays and to hold games in the spring, February to May, and fall, August to December.
yes. And then the first bullet point in there says that is after the city goes through and marks off our events or our sanctioned
Is that when,
things.
those events you're considering sanctioned, those when you're gonna rent it out?
Yes, if we know ahead of time before the Y schedule comes out.
Because, I mean, that's what, one of the
That's right.
big
That
things
is
that's
the
been
purpose of why
put
the
out there.
facility was built, yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that you're the one to ask, but somebody maybe can answer it. What were the revenue projections when this thing was first started on this?
I don't know if there was any actual study done. I think it was a guesstimate based on
I guess,
what would be charged versus the number of weekends in a year.
well, the numbers put to, I mean, do we have an idea, roughly an annual income
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay, okay.
There was no real in-depth study made about possible revenues because it was such a new deal for us going in. We knew about as much about it as the Y did, going forward, and it was about travel soccer and filling up our hotels and our restaurants and our guests and being
But there are no numbers put to that.
a tourism asset. So we didn't have anything that told us what kind of rent to expect.
Well, when we first started, there's 1 or 2 fields, but now that it's 8 turf fields, I stand to be correct, the TDA has those numbers of what it extrapolates to, because they're similar to the numbers that they have for the Copperhead.
There is a formula TDA uses.
Well, I mean, it's a $30 million investment down there, and we don't seem to know what we haven't anything projected that we might bring in a year?
Yes, based on current rentals, and I think, isn't it 22 million? What the soccer park, but anyway, so that short answer is yes, based on current rentals.
Yeah,
But what is that number?
Well, that's about first quarter of 24, correct me if I'm wrong, $64,000, does that sound right?
our first tournament down there was, with Fusion, they rented 4 fields, they wanted 8, we didn't have 8. We didn't have the paving done for 8, so we rented them 4 fields, and that revenue for that
4 fields is
2 days, that was
well, double that, so it'd be
$4,800. Since then, Fusion's come back and booked 3 tournaments for next year
4.
at a $65,000. Is it, or 4 tournaments?
It's 4 tournaments.
4 tournaments with them
And all of the fields per day is 5,000.
each,
No, that's for the 8 fields,
per day.
per day.
And we've got a named sponsor on the hook for,
Right. Well, what about operating expenses? Are any projections done on that? Do we know what it's gonna cost us? I mean, all the lights, maintenance, anything like that? Was any of that discussed?
yeah, it's been discussed a lot, but we couldn't put a number to it because we didn't know how long it would take us to mow a half mile from one end to the other, how much mowing there would be. And during soccer tournaments, and most of what we know about this going into it is what we have learned from other people that do soccer tournaments. Like calling around and talking to a half a dozen other groups that do soccer tournaments, but we're gonna have to have maintenance people down there during a tournament. If somebody stops up the commode, we can't wait for somebody on call to come load up the truck and get down there. We got people emptying trash cans, we've got, it is a city park just like everything else. It's, mile and a half walking trail and all of it.
I'm just, when is it gonna be finished? That's my next question.
The what?
When will it be finished, complete? Because
Well, if
I
it
understand
quits
it's not-
raining, we could be finished in another 30 days or so if it quits raining.
Well, I understand that from,
We haven't been able to get down there to finish the sidewalks or build the bridges for the mile and a half walking trail.
well, do we have any type of CO on that as far as our liability exposure for using unfinished part?
Phase 1 has been released to us by the contractor.
Okay.
Phase 1 is ours. Phase 2 is still, and that includes the mile and a half walking trail.
But did the inspection department sign off on it and everything? I mean, we need a CO, I think, to cover our backside, not because the contract, I mean, if that could be, I'd be great if I could.
Yeah, it's on our insurance, and it was all, the phase 1 was released before we ever did this tournament. Before we had the first practice out there. That was one of our big holdups, was getting phase 1 completed enough to get released, by the, builder and being able to put it on our insurance. Debbie, it's on our insurance, right?
That's a question for Jeff, because I don't manage the insurance.
It was a matter of insurance required that there be a CO, and yes, that part for liability has been added. But just that part.
We still got 2 bridges and some walking
We're still
trails
exposed
to
if
build.
people roam over into unprotected areas?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said, we're still exposed if people go out of the, is it marked as in, I haven't been down there, so, I mean, is it petitioned office? A sign doesn't do
There are
much.
construction fences up with signage on them that says
Okay.
construction beyond this point.
Keep the bottom half locked with a gate. Now, it was open for the tryouts that you're getting ready to tell us about.
Yes, fields 5, 6, and 7.
We got field 8 settled in one corner, and we got to raise that grade. But it has quit settling. But that was the only place we had a settling problem. We're close to finishing.
I hope we're not paying to fix it.
No,
I don't have an answer to that.
I don't have an answer to that either.
Well, it's either who put it in, whoever did the compaction test,
We had
that type of stuff.
compaction
They're the
people
ones that,
down there all the time.
Yeah.
Our compaction people were there every day.
The third party, or?
There was a third party doing a lot of that. So, I cannot answer all of your questions, but I can tell you what I know. And
Well, my concern is, we're looking at making an agreement for something we hadn't finished. We don't know what we're gonna make. We don't know what's gonna cost to maintain. I think there needs to be a little more exploration and a little more due diligence done before, I mean, it's got nothing to do with the why. It's putting the city in an agreement with something, and until we know, I just don't think it's a prudent move.
I agree. That's why it's taken us over a year to get to this point.
Well, I mean, has this been already submitted? Is this a rework or something? Because I noticed there's signatures on the back, but, so, I mean,
I'm gonna say this is, just by my limited knowledge, in agreeing with you, this is probably version 8. And
13,
How
fair
many?
enough.
version 13.
And what I will say, in philosophical support of this agreement, is the first one I've read that I can really, support, in that it outlines, what we'll provide to the Y at no cost. It outlines, the philosophical arrangement of how these things will be scheduled. Everything you've asked, in my opinion, is worthwhile and needs to be known and pertinent. This document, though, I think is more philosophical in nature of just how we're gonna share the fields and how we're gonna schedule them. So I don't know that cost is,
well,
I'm gonna regret saying this word, I don't know that cost is relevant to this particular agreement, although it's always relevant.
well,
So, I mean, this is just a scheduling agreement more than it is a.
and like I said, this has nothing really to do with the why.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not I understand, I just didn't know we were
Let me
ready
give
for
you-
that
Let
because.
me give you a little more history. Whenever we started this thing, what, 5 years ago? When I came to your board, John and I were at their board meeting, and we said, if you guys will help us raise the money for this soccer park, we'll let you program the soccer. Well, at that point, program the soccer was a pretty broad term, and building a soccer park was even broader term. We were looking at $3 to $4 million to build what we thought at the time would be adequate soccer.
3 or 4 grass fields.
3 or 4 grass fields, no lights.
Some park.
Minimal parking, this type of thing. And the Y stepped up and helped us raise some money. Well, in the end, we ended up with a $20 million soccer park with lights and turf and a walking trail and a dog park and pickleball and volleyball and everything else that went along with it to make it a regular park.
And notoriety and demand up and down the East
As a
Coast.
regular park, it's open just like any of our other parks, first thing in the morning till curfew in the evening.
Yes. Suggested curfew at this park is sunset unless there's a schedule.
And to do that, we hired a director because it's a little further away than any of our normal parks. And a little more involved than any of our normal parks. So as you grow and create new opportunities for your citizens, your manpower needs increase and whatnot. So that's how we ended up with a $20 million park. And while we're sitting here talking about this, early on, and this is my opportunity to, clear the air and apologize to Patrick, but when we started this and John and I said, we'll let you program soccer, we were talking about a couple of grass fields and something that would help meet the need for the 600 kids playing soccer at the Y at the time on Saturday morning. Well, one thing led to another, and we ended up building something that was going to meet the need for all of North Carolina's tournament soccer, travel soccer. And at that point, most of us here, including engineering, our staff people felt like it was beyond the scope of the Y to maintain that type of facility. So we, at that point, reneged on our agreement to them to say, you help us raise some money, we'll let you program the soccer. So this is our attempt here, this is a scheduling, agreement, is our attempt to allow them some semblance of what we promised them to start with. They'll run that concession stand at the bottom of the hill with prepackaged food and make whatever they can make off of that. They'll take those 4 fields at the bottom of the hill, and if they can rent them, they'll rent them, and they'll play soccer down there. Now, define weekday for the purposes of this. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
We will not go out and rent the fields to somebody else. That's the city.
Yeah, that's.
But it has to be on our calendar anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
but what we're
But
going to do.
weekday for practice and games
Okay, weekday
is
for us
Monday,
will be-
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
will be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
We
That-
usually avoid Wednesday.
That will be our recreational soccer program where,
No.
you guys have all been by the Y on Saturday. That's those kids.
No
That's
Fridays.
725 kids.
What we found out early on is there's not enough weekends on the calendar to accommodate everybody that wants to play on these soccer fields. The turf people, have been all up and down the East Coast and said there's nothing like it anywhere on the East Coast. And people from all over, are calling Jonathan and even calling Patrick wanting to get on that calendar. So we think, going ahead, going forward, that there will be tournament play on those fields just about every weekend during soccer season.
Well, this was my first read through it, and I would just like something that says that what you just said. Priority goes to people who want to rent the place out.
Priority go where else?
To people who want to rent it out.
Well,
And it
that's,
does- and-
Jonathan keeps that calendar.
Oh, I understand that, but in here, the way I read it and what it said, and I don't want to be misconstrued.
Right.
You know, I don't want to displace anybody. I'm not trying to be hard to get along with here, but we got to, I mean, that needs to be generating income because there's an operating expense.
13th iteration of this agreement.
Right. Well, and I'm the
Well,
new guy, so I haven't seen it.
and-
till-
Our football league,
It says it?
But
Do you not feel that it says it?
Because the language around following the scheduling of city-sanctioned events, that's, and I realize this is your first,
Right,
time
right.
looking at this, and so the
so
addition
you're,
of that language,
that language says that.
to me,
Is
that's
that-
what it says.
Well, I know. Does it say that,
We
Mr.
sent
Stug
this
over
out
there?
the other day. This is the first time any of us had seen this iteration.
To me, that says that city-sanctioned events that are gonna bring in revenue, which I agree, we need to bring in revenue, that takes priority over everything else. That's how I read this.
Well, I'm okay with that. That's what I'm after. I mean, as far as that's what I think.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
This is only half the fields. I mean, the
Yeah.
ones before exclusive.
And those 4 fields at the bottom, what I call the bottom, are completely off by themselves. They can be locked up, they can be, off limits. They're segregated by the way of design.
Well, I'm not, I certainly have no intent, I don't know how decisions were made before I got here, but I know dealing with it going forward, it's, you know, we need income out of that.
That's what this-
Absolutely.
that's what-
Well, if everybody feels that way and it's all clear, I should ask our attorney, is that,
Is it clear?
I don't know that it's the model of clarity. It depends on how much you want.
What would the model of clarity be?
Because
But we've also asked the pinnacle of all clarity.
That's right, so what
I will
is
start,
your suggestion?
I will start right off with, well, I'll just give options. I'm not advocating.
Was there
anything.
anything you've worked on the last 2 years that was completely and absolutely clear?
We do our best. I often fall short. The,
Okay, this is an operating agreement that says the Y's gonna use it Monday, Thursday, and Friday, Monday, Wednesday, whatever, those 3 nights. And that we're gonna keep the calendar, we're gonna rent it every chance we get. There are not enough weekends to rent it to everybody that wants to rent it.
so we can expect a lot of
And
income.
if we ain't got it rented, they can play for free.
Yeah.
And this, since you didn't have privy to the previous things we had, which was a partnership agreement, this facility use agreement, this is what we needed.
Okay.
The partnership was, I had people from city staff all the way to TDA calling me, asking me about marketing stuff, because that's what I do on my paying job. But that was a ludicrous thing. And I think this is better for the citizens of Asheboro, it's better for our council, it's better for the YMCA, that you have a facility use agreement instead of a partnership.
And we had to get away from the actuality or the appearance of shared employees. That was a liability
Yeah, I heard
workers'
about
comp
that.
nightmare, and that's
Okay.
been dispersed.
Well, I don't want to take up any more time, I know, but there was just, I had some
These are good
concerns.
questions,
Yeah.
And we've all asked these same questions in many of the former iterations of this.
For 2 years.
Trying to work out an agreement, but it has taken almost 2 years to work out an agreement that protects us and the Y, and that Jonathan's people can live with.
And it looks to me like the only things that don't have that wording around following the scheduling of city-sanctioned events is picnic shelter number 6 and concession stand number 2. Now, I just looked at this like super quick, but that's what I'm seeing, and that's not gonna,
They're yours too. You know, when you're practicing or playing, they're yours.
Yes, during their events, they are theirs.
Yep.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, just so no one's caught by surprise, here again, this is not me advocating, but just trying to answer the question. As a draftsman, I'm never fond of bullet points and things that don't specify exactly what takes priority over the other, because we had the reference going in to saying, well, you look at the first part, then that goes to the second. The fact that this discussion has broken out and there are reasonable minds who come to reasonably different conclusions leads to why I say it's not the model of clarity. Where I want to add some clarity is that you'll see this issue come back up. The reason it has to come back up is not because of me not taking a position on this specific document, but that the last time the council, which only speaks collectively, the last time this council spoke collectively on this issue was not at August of 2023 when the partnership resolution was passed. The last time the city council spoke authoritatively or collectively on this issue was in September of 2023 when it adopted the new article regulating the use, the venue of the sportsplex and incorporated it into the Code of Asheboro as part of the Cultural and Rec Policy Manual. So for example, when you look at section 19.6, it's where it talks about partner organization definitions. One way, if you wanted to leave this exactly as it is that we would go back and you'd see it. That's why I say you won't have to come back. You have to see it again. Is it could come back the next council meeting and say if there's a conflict, this agreement controls over what was adopted in the code. Because the only way you can change a part of the Code of Asheboro is by an ordinance adopted by the city council. The council has not adopted, and where I can see a variation because when you read the manual, it makes absolutely no reference to adult soccer. Adult soccer is referenced in here as far as the process. The 3 tournaments are referenced in here. There is no reference to the 3 tournaments in the manual, which is a matter of law as an ordinance adopted by the city council.
The ordinance needs to have specific reference to this
So
agreement.
either all of this, exactly, either all of this can be incorporated literally into the regulation, or a classic example of that is to put it the old phrase, notwithstanding any other provision in here, if there is a conflict between these provisions and the facility use agreement adopted on the date, the provisions in the facility use agreement shall control. That is why I wanted to warn you, it's going to have to come back up, because right now it puts Cultural and Rec staff in a problem if they start enforcing a provision here that hasn't been approved by the city council as a matter of the Code of Asheboro.
And in September, our changing of the code basically said that Jonathan's in charge and it will be a city rec center.
It is, because
Recreation facility.
exactly, the manual controls all city venues. At that point, when the council spoke in September, it said these are the rules for this venue.
Well, in a question, I guess, or circumstance of form over function perhaps, but wordsmithing aside, you know.
I'm not trying to argue over that,
2 years
right.
worth of background in it.
Yeah.
This says what what I was expecting.
Right.
And is acceptable and pleasing to me within the confines of what we're dealing with. And I took this document to be something that would be part and parcel to the ordinance. Now, clearly that's not the way it's being presented, so it sounds like the format, we need to clean that up if we want to adopt this.
That's what I'm saying, I'm giving options for you to do
Into the
that.
ordinance as a subsection or a reference in the ordinance to a subsequent agreement.
Correct,
Can you
correct.
bring
Because
that-
it might not be the only agreement we want to enter into over some period of time.
Can you bring that back to council next month with the,
Yes, sir.
just to incorporate into the policy?
Yes, sir.
To, you know,
I can.
You can.
If the council's will is to have
we want to do it
this,
right. I mean,
Yeah, we need it to be clear.
if the council's will is to have this incorporated into where the code recognizes this as controlling, it can be done that way.
And
If you'd like any other changes, we can do that also, but that's where I defer to what the council.
and the why can't continue to be dragged along over and over and over. We need to give them something they can live with, put it to bed, let them get on with their soccer business at the park, in all fairness. We just need to go ahead, and if you can fix it with the code next month, we need to go ahead and adopt this.
And I assume you want, when you say fix, you want these same terms, do you want just the whole agreement reference, or do you want me to integrate it words? What is your what's the council's preference?
my preference in simplicity, and I'll defer to council, is, I would incorporate the reference the agreement rather than rewordsmith the whole thing. What about you, Clark?
I think that would be the simplest way to do it.
Yes.
And just for clarity, this would supplement, or not supplement, but
I mean,
would supersede the agreement that was adopted in August.
Correct.
In all form and fashion.
Exactly. The current legal position of the city, that's interpreted by the city attorney, by myself, is that what was adopted in August has been superseded, because the last time the council spoke, it had a resolution in August stating a partnership agreement, but then in September, it adopted an ordinance and said, this is how this venue shall be operated. And so what would come back in February is an acknowledgement that that venue regulation is now going to recognize this and would state that if there's a conflict, like I said, there is a conflict between certain provisions. If there's a conflict, this would control in interpreting that.
the more stringent shall prevail.
And the other change would be the effective date would go from December 1 to the effective date whenever you act to change the code.
But this was not to be effective until June anyway.
So does this require consensus or a motion to have this incorporated into the ordinance?
It would be preferable for there to be a motion
Okay.
directing the city attorney to incorporate this agreement into the Code of Asheboro.
Clark, you want to say that properly?
Mayor, I move we direct staff to incorporate the facility use agreement proposed tonight into the city code of Asheboro, and by way of a ordinance to be considered by council at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Burks? Thank you. Discussion? Any more
Are you
discussion?
satisfied as revenue maximizing?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I want to be too.
Well, and the only reason I ask that, to make it clarified is, we're all gonna be dead and gone someday, or the people, and we all understand what it says.
Speak for yourself.
I'm gonna hang around a while, but basically, we all understand it that way. And I just wanted clarity down the road that people, that was in there. That's all I was trying to do, to make sure. And I read it a little bit different.
That's safe.
Yeah.
You did the right thing, and unfortunately, the rest of us haven't had a chance to look at it till we're tired of looking.
Oh, I understand. And
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We're about to start recreation outdoor soccer registration. One of the things that we've got to do is let 725 families know we're not gonna play our games on Saturday at the Y. we're gonna be playing our games at the sports complex on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
And they'll be happy with that.
So, well, there's gonna be some, I've already had some backlash, but it's okay. We're on it.
Give them a ball and a goal and let them play
It's
at the
because,
Y.
no, it's because it's little Johnny does Boy Scouts on Tuesday, and little Susie does, they'll get over it, they always did. My question to you is, can Joe start advertising that, hey, we're gonna start playing our games, which they start in March? Mid-March,
It's for you.
so,
My opinion is yes, that this is just a matter of documentation by the city attorney. To paraphrase what I think's got to go on.
That's the way I understand it.
Yes, and I was just looking, the current reg, I think, probably covers you, talking about youth soccer?
yeah.
Because what's already in the code says the city of Asheboro and the Randolph-Asheboro YMCA will partner to sponsor, schedule, and manage the recreational youth soccer league. And then it goes into about the challenge soccer program with football, so it's already authorized there.
I just wanna make
That
sure,
can happen.
I don't wanna advertise it and then something happens.
We don't want you to do that.
It's like you guys said, it's been 2 years for all of us, so.
I can't get ahead of what the city council ultimately does, but they have already directed me to incorporate the agreement you've been operating under into the
Good enough.
draft.
Have a motion, and a second. Do we vote on that?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Jonathan, tell us about pro soccer tryouts.
Do you have to do anything to re-include Charlie?
Nope.
No.
It was just for that
Just
one.
one item.
It was for one and done.
Uh,
Oh, you're back.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ogburn did want me to give you all an update on the Carolina Corps Football Club that held their tryouts last month. Just a little history about them. They are an independent professional soccer team based out of High Point. They participate in the MLS, which is Major League Soccer Next Pro Professional League. They held open tryouts at the Sportsplex on December the 16th. They lasted from 9 to 5. They rented 6 fields that day. They had 200 participants ranging in age from 15 to 38. Some of their participants were local, some were regional. We even know of one that was there from Seattle. So we are drawing people. I mean, obviously they were there for the tryout, but that facility is drawing people
Kids
from
flew
all
from
right.
all over the country
They did.
to come for that tryout. John and I were both down there for a couple of hours that morning, and it was impressive. And the people were blown away by the quality of the park.
Yes, and afterwards, we did have a debrief with them. They were very pleased, couldn't compliment us enough, and they want to come back.
And they paid a fee for this.
They did pay a fee for this, yes, sir.
They also charged a fee. They charged everybody $125, $150.
Something like that, yes, sir.
And some of them flew from the West Coast to Washington DC and different places to get here.
Oh, yeah, they were from Florida, Texas, that we know of, and then that one
I
that I
saw
gave
cars
from Seattle.
from South Carolina, Florida,
Virginia, yeah.
whatnot. We'll talk briefly about the Fusion tournament, or I can.
Well, if you'd like to, go ahead.
Fusion tournament was part of the Adidas Clash, which is an annual event. They had 500 plus teams in the Piedmont run by Fusion, and they called down here and wanted 8 fields, and we didn't have 8 fields ready because of the parking. We didn't have our paved parking done. So they took 4 fields, they sent 24 teams down here, played all day Saturday and most of Sunday.
3/4 of Sunday.
They loved it. There were different age groups, and they talked about the quality of the park and how they would be back, and then they turned around 3 weeks later and booked 4 events.
4 weekends, yes.
4 weekends. That was teams from South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And very well received.
Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about the communication that's happening with TDA? And I know you're, when we get
Yes.
something that's booked, you're communicating.
Every time we get a booking, Ryan McCoy, I introduced y'all to at a previous meeting, he contacts TDA. And then actually sometimes some of the groups actually contact the TDA as well. So we're getting double contact. Yes, we are reaching out to TDA anytime we get a booking down at the facility.
Got it.
Ryan said that all the motel rooms in Asheboro filled. On one of those terms, he told me which one it was, but,
What was the question?
The fusion term filled up the hotel
Fill
room.
up the hotel room.
Oh, there wasn't a hotel room in all the Piedmont available that weekend, and everything in Asheboro was full.
We weren't on facility that huge.
There were 500-some teams. Oh, I was downtown at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and I saw soccer uniforms everywhere. The kids with their parents were down here looking for a place to eat. I saw them everywhere. They were all over downtown.
And that's one thing, Addie's on your communication list also with Downtown Asheboro.
Yes, she
So
is.
she can inform the downtown businesses, hey, this is coming, and if you want to do something special in your business, so it's all.
So, TVA will be our intermediary with the zoo. We're hoping to have the zoo involved in a lot of this. So, anything else, anybody? All right, thank you, Jonathan, thank you, Patrick. I'm sorry it took so long.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Patrick.
Oh, okay, you have one.
Yeah, I'm number 9, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Lease agreement for zookeepers baseball.
Yes, we just have to give public notice for a possible lease agreement. So I am presenting for your consideration a resolution to publish legal notice of a proposed lease agreement with Zookeepers Baseball LLC for the use of McCrary Park. I would like to mention, though, point out, which I'm sure most of you have already figured out, but you have to give 30 days public notice. And because of January's meeting being a week later than normal, that'll make the lease where y'all can consider, that'll be your March meeting. So in consideration of that, we've included in your packets for your reference, a copy, should be in there, of the old lease, just so you can become familiar with what was. And then before your February meeting, you will receive copies of the proposed lease so that you have time to digest that. If you have any questions, concerns, whatever, you can address staff beforehand so that hopefully when you get to March, you have everything you need.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve by reference the advertising of a proposed lease agreement with Asheboro Zookeepers? You got a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Jeff, does this necessitate any change in the city code as well? I mean, if we're gonna deal with that, we need to deal with it all at one time. I think.
So long as we stay just with the lease agreement itself.
Okay.
We'll be, now, you do bring up a good question. And that's something you should consider, and Mr. Sermon, you be sure and correct me if I'm misspeaking here. The lease itself will not require code action. However, circumstances have changed from the days of, because as you'll notice in that sublease that was with the Copperheads before they switched names, that took place in the days when the city didn't own the ballpark. The Employee Fitness Center, Prairie Sapona, or Sapona McCrary, had the park, we leased it, and then the city subleased it. Now, the new lease will reflect the city has fee simple ownership of the park, and the question is raised. I don't believe in your schedule of fees, you have anything set up if you wanted to rent out space at the ballpark, is that right? At times that don't conflict. So there will be a point in time at the council's choosing when you may need to address, just like every other venue is regulated
Say that again. Yeah.
by Cultural and Rec Services,
Right.
manual, the park should be brought into that, including any associated fees. I said, the lease can proceed independent, but that is something that will need to be looked at
Down the road.
down the road, depending on the council's will.
All right, now can I have a motion?
But
Now,
but it is presumed that this lease with whomever, will be, exclusive.
Will be non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive.
It'll be a non-exclusive lease.
That would be,
City schools use it too.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was looking at this subleasing assignment, and
Yeah.
who could approve what and all like that, so.
Sublease it.
So it's
We schedule it.
exclusive with exceptions.
it's a non-exclusive
On the
lease
weekend
granted
Yeah.
to the zookeepers.
The high school baseball game
Yeah.
and the,
Well, this is really of no use, right?
Yeah.
This lease agreement in here is really of no use because it.
all right, so I
It's
got a
solely as a
motion.
reference to what was.
Okay, okay, so, gotcha.
Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution authorizing publication of intent to approve the lease by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion.
Apparently, there'll need to be some housekeeping, but we'll move on, get to that point.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, sir. You got a lot to say grace over these days. All right,
That's why he's got them big shoes.
Legislative hearing, Mr. Nuller will provide initial testimony pertaining to an application to rezone property at 115 South Fayetteville Street and 142 Worth Street.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing. It has been properly advertised and notice published, as well as notice mailed to adjoining property owners concerning a request to change the zoning of the subject properties from OA6, which is office and apartment designation, to the city central commercial or B3 district. This is a non-conditional application, so you'll see there is no site plan, there are no uses proposed. If this is put in the district and all uses and development that would be permitted in B3 would be authorized by action here this evening. This is a application filed by Al LaPrade on behalf of the ELLA LLC. There's two property addresses comprising the totality of the property. Two parcel numbers. We're only looking at a portion of that 1.46 acres because you'll see in the maps some of the properties already in the B3 district. And so this application would take all of the land area comprised by those two pins into the B3 district. Formerly, we had a drive-through bank on the use on the property. But there is also associated surface parking and a parking structure that you'll see from these photos. Subject parcel and subject area that we're looking at tonight is outlined in blue. It's a little easier probably to see on this map. We're looking at both A1 and A2, but only the blue areas, which denote the OA6 district. You can see part of A1 is already red, it's already zone B3, so we're looking at the blue areas on A1 and A2 to take that to a central commercial classification. You'll see the abutting property owners who would have received notice both by the applicant as well as the city on this application.
Is there any sensibility in what I call the old Wachovia drive-through to do the rest of K? I mean, I know we can't do it in this action, we have to advertise, et cetera, but that looks like a goofy little donut hole.
It is, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there may be a need to, if the applicant.
Oddly, it would be unusual to rezone a parking lot to require no parking.
Yeah.
But they color up the map evenly.
That property owner at some point may come forward, but yeah, that would completely eliminate that, as you say.
Okay. Public hearing?
Let me just, if I can, it is a public hearing, but I've got to get this in the record just to comply with the law. It is Center City Planning Area, that's what that map denotes. You see our utilities, topo, aerial photo, this is giving you an idea of the parts of the property that are included in the application. Several photos, everyone's familiar. This is the portion of the property, it's already in the B3 Central Business District. This is included in the application here, obviously. I won't go through all the analysis. You can read it. It's been in the report in your hands for a while. I will move to the LDP consistency. You can see the plan recommendations and that there are several goals and policies that I tend to be supportive of the application. For the record, I'll just say the application would meet the intent of the B3 district if approved. We have already got a portion of it in that district. You all know that the special element of the B3 is that it does not require off-street parking for development. So we are always, and we recommend that great care be taken when we look at B3 applications so that we're not doing things that would make parking availability worse in the downtown area. With this application and the way it's been developed, it's got a parking structure on it. We don't anticipate that being an issue with this application. So staff recommends approval of this request. Planning board made its recommendation this past Monday and was favorable as well. So that concludes my remarks. It is a public hearing, and I'll turn it over to the speakers from the floor.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item of business, city business? Sorry.
That's all.
Unnecessary, I will not prolong the process.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff, I move that we approve both the consistency statement and the rezoning request.
Got a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kelly, okay, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Nuttall.
Got two project updates. We just want to get information to council on. The first is the Trade in North Street infrastructure project. I'll say this is only an update. We're not asking for any action here this evening for this project, but we are at a point where it's time to update council. You know, this is a project that proposes to replace underground utilities maintained by the city that are due for replacement, and while we're doing that project, to hopefully bury all of the overhead utilities that are remaining on North Street and all of that on Trade Street, ideally. Following that burying, we would replace the streets. We would have the ability to widen sidewalks there, add decorative crosswalks, has been done elsewhere downtown, and install streetlights consistent with what we have throughout downtown. It's important to note, this is a city received a state infrastructure grant to design and build this project. The Wooten Company is helping us with this project. We're at the 65% design development completion of the project. Most of you all know we did hold a public workshop. I think some of you attended back in November at the City Recreation Center to present information to the public, as well as property owners and business owners who obviously will have some impact if we were to, once we move forward and tear up those segments of street. There had been discussions early in this process whether there was going to be any changes to travel directions. There was a traffic study done as a part of this to see if one-waying North Street, for instance, or reversing Trade Street would have any benefits to downtown. That was found to be not the case, and so no changes proposed there.
Not only not the case, but not practical.
Worse, and in some cases, probably worse situation. So those streets will remain as they are. We expect at the very earliest, and that this project would not begin before July. There would need to be some additional action by council down the road to advertise the project and do everything that we would need to do. So we're still several months off. We've got some more design work to do. We're at the present time, what we're trying to do is work with the property owners in that area who would be affected by the undergrounding, particularly of the power, to determine what expenses outside of our project that those landowners might incur to reconnect to that underground power, depending on the age of that electrical, those systems in those buildings. So it'll be quite simple for newer, updated electrical boxes. Some of the older ones, it could be more expensive to do the project. So we have been working with the property owners to, and we've done some visits to the buildings, and are hoping to get estimates from those property owners so we can see what those impacts would be, to determine, do we include that bearing of the power with the project. So that's where we are. We started to get some of those estimates, but we want to have them all so that we can kind of build it into the scope of what it will take to do this project. Up on the screen, I've just got what we think will be the preliminary order of construction, if it ultimately moves forward as we had envisioned. And so, that is what we would anticipate, when the project begins. But we've still got quite a bit of work to do to make sure we're not causing, any unknown issues.
Get rid of that crazy blow-off valve down there.
That would be part of certainly part of the project.
That's one of the things that we've already decided got to go.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
And we're gonna ballpark figure how much this is gonna cost.
We do. Wooten has given us, and it's got a little bit of age on it. So we're needing to refresh that. At this point, barring some really escalation of cost, we think we can do it for what we have in the state grant at this point. The question is going to be, are there any additional costs beyond what we've identified at this point? So our goal obviously is to use the state funds and do the project without any local dollars. We still got to see if that's going to be feasible. But it was a $1.5 million state grant for the design.
That's what we're aiming at.
Design and build, yes, sir.
3 years ago, we thought we could do it.
Do we have a number from Duke?
We do.
I'm sure you know schedule.
No schedule, but yeah, there was a utilities number that is in our most recent estimate based on consultation with Duke.
I'm assuming we're also continuing to look for grant funding, as we always do.
There is,
Feel
for
like
this
it's
particular
limited.
project, certainly, I'm not aware of any that are really geared towards this project, other than that state infrastructure
Okay.
grant that we received. When it comes to the next project, we think there are other opportunities, but in this case, probably be pretty limited outside of that state funding that we've already had.
Okay.
Johnny, you still working on this project?
As little as I can. Yeah, I will say that, the city has also talked about doing some of the work themselves, which will bring the cost down as well.
Yeah, there's some of that utility work will be horrendously expensive to contract out, just due to its own unknown nature. And
The city personnel know what's there a lot better than any contractor coming in and trying.
I presume this will retain this logo there that says parking for Walker Real Estate only as it pertains to myself.
With a vote of council, yes, sir.
All right, what's the other one, Eddie?
I just want to acknowledge David Gerald here this evening. I did send out a communication to folks who have been supporters of this project, that we would be given an update here this evening, so I appreciate him being here. As it pertains to the Center City Garden, We do have 100% design development plans complete. They are ready to be approved at the local level. We are still waiting for a response from the Army Corps as it relates to jurisdictional matters. There are some wetlands on the property. We knew that going in. We've been attempting to consult with them on our proposal to boardwalk that area of the property for the garden. You know, all of the documentation was submitted in September. We're still awaiting, feedback on that. We do have the driveway permit. That permit does require us to align the driveway and move it from where it currently is to the parking area on South Cox Street to line it up with Cranford Street. That means we get to move a power pole as a part of the process. So we had not anticipated that, but that will be what will need to happen. Really tonight, I just wanted to let you all know that we are preparing for phase 1 construction activities. That will include selective removal of vegetation, demolition of 2 structures on the property. We'll install that construction entrance, grade and stone, what will become the parking lot. That'll serve as a construction staging area. And we will install the perimeter fencing for the property to give us site control, but also to live up to the screening, promises we made to adjoining property owners. So that's included in phase 1, and quite honestly, we anticipate that to be a big part of the expense for that first phase. That fencing most likely will have to be, we will have to bring in an outside contractor to do that work. It will not be a chain link fence at this point, based on what we're proposing. I do want to point out there's been a lot of conversation at the council level about 205 South Cox Street. That's a dwelling that's on the property. We've looked at it a lot. Council has given staff input on what should happen with that structure. We propose to take down that building as a part of the first phase. We just don't think it can be repurposed in a cost-effective manner for a visitor amenity. It doesn't mean that we will immediately construct any type of visitor center. What we will be continuing to research and try to pursue grant funding for a future visitor center. But our goal is to get the project underway at this point. We think phase 1 activities probably will be around $240,000 to get everything going. We did submit an application for funding through the State Attorney General's office for environmental enhancement funding. Unfortunately, we did not get that. There is another upcoming cycle. It's related to the Smithfield settlement from 20-some years ago. And it'll be the last year, I believe, of that program that those funds are available. We had positive comments on our application, and so we're hopeful that we'll get funding through that in this last round. We also have a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant that has been submitted, and we've had preliminary positive feedback on that, and we'll continue to look for funding opportunities. That said, it's expected that the city would have to appropriate additional funds, even with the grants that we may get in the upcoming budget year for us to be able to, fully complete the project. So.
Well, I know as part of one of the planning sessions, we were talking about foundations like the Timken Foundation.
Sure.
Presence here, we need to pursue that and all
Yep.
that. So those
Sure.
are opportunities.
Absolutely. We just think one of the phone companies has a hometown grants program as well. It's not a huge amount, but it's something that we'll also pursue. I do want to make everybody aware there is a project page where you can get all the information, and we keep this up to date so folks know kind of where things are. It's available through Planning and Zoning Department website. So that's the update. Like I said, no actions required on this particular item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? I apologize for stepping
Absolutely.
out. Do we have a total cost projection? Did I miss that when I stepped out, or? I heard you say phase 1.
Yeah, the master plan prepared by the landscape architect that the city hired to design the project had estimated costs of over $1 million for the project, not including the visitor center. Phase 1, we expect to be about $240.
I kind of like to know the total cost before we don't need to piecemeal this,
Yeah.
know where we're going. We need to know where we're going. where we think it's gonna end up.
I would anticipate, probably $1 million project.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get, I think we can get some numbers to back that up.
Ms. Reeves?
In your packet is a budget amendment to, ordinance to amend the David and Pauline Gerald Center City Garden Fund. This is for the amount of $240,000, which is what Trevor is, projecting Phase 1 costs to be. And in the ordinance, it explains the same things that, Trevor verbally said about what is expected to be covered in Phase 1. The funds are already included in the general fund operating budget that was adopted in June. So there's only one ordinance that needs to be covered today, which is allocating, making changes in the project fund to receive the funds from the general operating fund and to set aside the money for construction purposes. And I've categorized it as construction because I didn't really know how, any other way to categorize this, so it's very global. But if there are no questions for me, I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions?
Well, me being the new guy, I still would like to know the total cost before we commit any. I'm in favor of the project, but I think, based on the amount of money that we have spent in the last 2 years, we need to have an idea of what this total cost is gonna be. Because I can tell you from experience, when you piecemeal something, it costs more than the total that you start with.
You just said $1 million.
Well, that's his guess.
That's the estimate.
Well, that is based on the numbers provided by our designer as a part of as part of our.
Does not include the visitor center.
That does not include the visitor
Not
center.
including the visitor center.
The other thing I will say is we, again, are going to do what we can with city personnel to try to manage those costs, so.
But there is a cost.
But absolutely still a cost, even with city personnel. I would anticipate if there are no additional grant funds received for the project, it's possible we'll be asking for, potentially, $700,000 in the upcoming budget to complete the project. Now, if we can do it for less than that, we certainly will.
How much was received in donations? Do we know?
I don't have that number exactly, but it was about $70,000 total. We've invested maybe that $400,000 in property acquisition at this time. And part of that $70,000 was some more recent donations of about $4,000 that was donated when Miss Gerald passed away. And it could be 75, 78, I just don't have that number. It's about half of the amount of the first piece of property, which was about maybe $160,000. It's in that that range. It was less than half of what the original first piece of property was.
This is budgeted already, we're just moving it to another fund.
These funds are currently budgeted in the general operating funds. If it's not spent, then it automatically, just because it's budgeted,
Yeah.
whatever's budgeted doesn't mean that you spend every single thing. But we did, when staff was putting together the budget, had some foresight in knowing that we already had a contract out with for design and stuff, so we knew that something would be coming. We didn't know exactly what that looked like. But it is budgeted at this time, yes.
Well, my concern, and we all got the same sheet, is we got 2 open major expenses that have not been completed and you were right, I was wrong, it wasn't 30, it's 20 million that we spent down the zoo, and we spent over 7 million at McCreary Park, and we're still not finished. We spent 200,000 to go over and get started, when are we gonna be finished? I mean, and what will our total cost be? I know we're saying it's a million, so my concern, with the general fund, that fund balance, I think in the stuff came down, we're at 15%, if I'm correctly, which is a 33% drop from last year. And from everything I've gathered, we're headed toward dangerous territory if we don't get our general fund balance back up.
Right.
So as much as I respect David and as much as I want to do that, I think we need to finish what we got, find out where we stand, and proceed from there.
We're trying to get the soccer park finished.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, until we do, I don't think we need to bite off something else. That's just, and I mean, because I want to do it, and I want to do it right, and I want to do it all. We don't need some fenced-in yard over there for a year and a half, especially if you got to come back and ask for $700,000. So.
Well, seeing that things aren't getting any cheaper to get done, I'm gonna go ahead and make your, what was it you asked for? Request?
Request.
Well,
Ordinance to amend?
they may be getting cheaper. I will contest.
I request an
Approve by
amend
reference.
by reference, or approve the ordinance by reference.
I move to approve the ordinance by reference.
All right. If we don't get a second, then Joey's free to make a motion to table it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second by Mr. Bell. Discussion, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
They're not. All right, motion carries. Mr. Roney, made you wait all night. And you're just gonna tell us that you're ready to sign this,
Yes.
contract tomorrow.
You got me?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. I do want to go through some things, but I'm just going to read, so we'll get through this quickly. The update, Councilman Ogden, so he knows where we are on this project. It's been on for a while. So just so you know, state budget 2 years ago allocated $55 million, direct allocation to the city of Asheboro to extend water. 55 million, yes, to the Wilson Project, Chatham County Advanced Manufacturing Site. Council approved on April 6th to use HDR as our owner's advisor for this project. Then on July 13th, the council adopted a resolution. We had to establish criteria for the project to be able to do design build. So we're crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, doing it the right way. Next slide. Staff issued advertising request for qualifications on August 21st of this year for design build services. We received 5 statement of qualifications September 19th this year. Really good candidates. I was pleased with the pool of candidates, all great. We had 2 that stood out, so we shortlisted those 2. We did interviews right here in this room with those 2. Between those, we have selected the Garney Construction Design Build team, and the consultants there, they brought 3 consultants on so we can get this job done quickly. The consultants will be the Wooten Company, Withers Ravenel, and LKC Engineering. So, we're getting to what we need. Design build is done in 2 phases. I'm going to phase, and that's what I'm here to request tonight, is approving the contract for phase 1. Phase 1 includes at least 60% design. I'll tell you in a minute, we're going for 75%. It gives us an opportunity for material acquisition, easement acquisition, permitting. Next slide. The scope of this is what you have in your packets. We got that put together for you. It gives us a PER, preliminary engineering report, a hydraulic model, all the geotechnical and environmental investigations we need to do, particularly the underground stuff we need to be working on, the field services, lab testing, engineering analysis and report. Next slide. It also gets us into the design phase, which we'll start with an aerial. They've already done that. And we'll be doing some conditional surveys as well, putting it all together. Definitely the SUEs, the subsurface, utility engineering, and then we get to a 30% design, that we will approve the 30%. So to give you schedules, this 30% design in the contract we have is expected to be complete August 1st. so we'll have 30% plans then. Then we'll go to a 75% design, which is supposed to be complete by November 1st of this year. Then we'll get to the GMP, which is the guaranteed maximum price. That's what we're going for contract 2. They will give us a guaranteed price of what the project's going to cost. It will not exceed that price. That's the benefit of design build. So moving to the next slide.
Assuming no changes. Assuming no changes.
No changes. We're going to control that. Also, in scope of phase 1 is permitting. Of course, we got to deal with the Department of Transportation, Public Water Supply, erosion control, stormwater. Wetlands, we know they're wetlands, the stream crossings, lots of stream crossings, deep river crossings, so those are all going to be major issues. And then we have 600 and 700 unallocated for permit fees. And easement acquisitions, we expect to complete easement acquisitions by March 1st of 25. That's on the schedule in the contract. So, next slide. Phase 1. The contract we have, that's in the spreadsheet there, for sections 100 through 500 is $5,034,601.90. We have a contingency of $749,875 for the easements. That was in the original contract. We chose to pull that out, and the design build team agreed to do it, to put it in contingency just because we didn't want to commit to that money if we didn't need to spend it. I have a feeling we are going to be using all that. So I'm putting in the total sum of the project, but I didn't want to have to pay for it if we weren't going to use it. So that's why we pulled it out in contingency. So the total cost for phase 1 of this is going to be $5,783,976.90 with that contingency. So with that, that's a overview of what we've got going on. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do we have a printer that's got 1117 paper?
We do, yes. I should have done that for you.
Well, for those folks that said they wanted their papers electronically, certainly that saved enough paper.
Oh, I couldn't see it.
I can see it, but it's tough. Mostly because it's halfway I know what I'm
All right,
looking
so
at. But
this for informational purposes.
No, I'm going to ask for action. Yes, okay? So if you're ready for me to ask for, I'll be glad to answer questions. Let me ask, and then you can ask questions. So I'm recommending approval of the executing a design build contract with Garney Companies Incorporated for phase 1 of the design build Wolf Speed Water Line Extension Project. And that total is the $5.7 million that I referenced.
so that's roughly 10% to get going.
But we are getting the 70% design, so.
I so moved.
Okay.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Have a second.
Second.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion.
I'm going to add 2 more dates. We still are on schedule for the substantial completion of December 1st, 25, meeting Wolf Speed's requirement of January 1, 26, and we'll have final completion of April 1st, 26, per the contract.
When we get into the actual construction phases of this, are you anticipating that this will be entirely based on unclassified excavation? There will be no rock clause?
That's a great question. We'll get into that when we get there.
Well, if you have a guaranteed maximum contract.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to evaluate.
I'm just saying, you know, if you have a guaranteed maximum and there's not a rock clause, then
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also saying under the state guidelines of design build, there are avenues to ask for more money, even under the guaranteed maximum pricing under design build. I'm just.
If you look at the study they're going to be doing on the SUEs, they're going to be very thorough in their investigation.
You know, I want us all to be correct.
Very thorough on their investigation. So,
Did we vote on that?
we have not.
Not yet.
Had a motion and a second?
Yes,
We didn't vote.
we did not vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
How is the intake valve coming at Lake Lucas?
Actually, that contract for this professional services is in here for me to look at right now, so.
So what now?
I will be, hopefully awarding the contract for professional services.
So we got the grant and all that.
There is funding in, once again, the state budget allocated funding for a water project.
Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna have funding, we're gonna.
Okay. All right, thank you, Michael. All right, there's a film festival tonight, tomorrow night at, Sunset Theater. And then the Saturday night is, a fundraiser, Terry Von Cannon Music fundraiser with Terry and a bunch of his friends playing, at Sunset Theater to benefit the Laura Lisk, Love Like Laura Foundation.
I think tickets are either $20 or $25, Mayor.
Yeah.
The balcony's $20 plus, I don't know, it's $2 or $3 to go through the website and get them.
And Fields of Gold.
I think the other price was sold out.
The $30 ones are.
Yeah, I won't sit down there no how. I like those cheap.
All right. Monday is Martin Luther King birthday holiday celebration. The East Side NAACP group is having breakfast again and a march. The march will be from the school to the old courthouse. Breakfast starts at 8. The march starts at 10:30. Chamber of Commerce annual meeting is coming up on the 26th at 6:30 at Pinewood. If you want to go to that, let Joanne know, and she will get you. You have to have a ticket, and Joanne has tickets for you and your spouse. That's all I got. Kelly?
Just since we're talking calendar, Downtown Asheboro Inc. has a new website, and one of its greatest features is a calendar of what's going on downtown. So this is stuff at Bicentennial Park, events at businesses, so if you wanna know what's going on downtown, visit the new Downtown Asheboro Inc. website. That is now up and running. People can submit things, Addie vets those, of course, but if you wanna know what's going on.
Charles?
I'm good.
Mark?
Nothing new.
Bill?
Yeah.
Walker?
I'm gonna take a moment and pull out my soapbox. Tonight, we approved about 350 houses. We previously down the old Humble Mill Road, it was nearly 400. There was things brought up in each one of these discussions that we always hear, and back when it was 20 and 30 items at the time, you know, there were nominal amounts, but, when we all walked in today, we saw the new fire truck. You know, and that thing's about $350,000, as I recall, because I remember if we've got 3 of them, we could save $1 million. And, so my point is there's 2 points to this. These major developers that are coming in from other markets, they have higher expectations of what they have to do than we are currently meeting, if that makes any inverse sense. And cause I work in all these markets and I see what goes on here, and we've always been afraid of a price point because we didn't have the wage base to sustain it and the economy. And my opinion is that time is stopped. In fact, it stopped probably 2 or 3 months ago. I don't think we're properly prepared. An impact fee of $1,000 a door would have bought that fire truck. The way the RPO and the DOT prioritizes projects, and the reason Mecklenburg County gets so much of the secondary road construction right over there is because you can buy your way to the top of the list. You know, if you contribute up to 10% of the project, you'll go from priority 100 to priority 1 or 2. This money has to come from somewhere. Obviously, they've got a gazillion-dollar budget, and they charge the crap out of you if you want to build an apartment building or build a subdivision. That's where that money comes from, is to get you a 4-lane Zoo Parkway if you want it moved up on the list, or some other item.
So we need to look at impact fees.
I think we need to put a moratorium on subdivision development until we decide what we need to do, not if we need to do. And it don't need to be no 6-month thing, cause we can't hold up the free market, but we need to do something different than we are doing. We're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Agree.
Cause the existing taxpayers can't afford to supply all of this stuff for this new development. And the new development's great, but it'll generate money downstream. But a lot of these impacts are gonna have to, like the Fire Station 3, which we've got grant monies for and all like that, but it needs one of these trucks too. And we could've bought one tonight with their money. And I just, and it's expected, don't you see that in all these other markets?
Oh, I see impact fees on water. I
Yeah,
mean, you pay for a water and sewer, you pay for a water and sewer connection, but there's a lot of municipalities that charge an impact fee. And that's just kind of a number, I've seen them just pull out of the air. Now they've gotten a little more refined, but back in the day, I know they were doing it up in.
Go to Orange County, you'll go get your own water in a bottle and go home.
Used to be called extortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, still is, it's just.
It's just become accepted.
Yeah.
Call it impact fees.
Yeah, the only thing is, that's Charlotte and that's Orange County. We're here in Randolph County, we're not in that growth area.
Are we not?
We have come into it.
Well,
We're here.
Are we not? Are we not? I mean, I think we are. I mean,
Everything is forecast.
But
what's
$13
forecast.
billion, the largest entity in the world?
12,000 jobs.
it's forecast that we are, but, I don't know. We'll see.
We gotta be putting some products on the ground, and we need the developers to pay for that.
Let me frame this for you and how I get to this. These developers have come out of Monroe, and you saw the markets that they operate in. And these are major metropolitan markets. They didn't come here because they didn't think the price point was standing. They came here because they thought was the demand. And that price of $369, that same house is $429 in Union County. If they they want to say $349, they can say $352. This $500 or $1,000 I'm talking about means a lot to us, and it's meaningless to them. And they came here and put their resources here when they could have put some more resources either in Guilford County or Union or Mecklenburg County. So I think they think it's here, or they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have walked in our door.
Eddie?
Life throws us twists sometimes, and I had a twist last Thursday. But I think I'm gonna be well. I'm in good shape. You may have noticed, if I smile, I'm no longer grinning ear to ear. I can only grin from this ear to this ear. So anyway, I knew what I had the moment I was sitting there, and I thought, I gotta go to the doctor. And anyway, we're getting there, but I really wanted to publicly thank some of our city staff by name, because they were terrific with me, and one's our nurse practitioner, Beth King, and Donna Hayes, our nurse. They were terrific. Did not really want to ride to the hospital in an ambulance, but the county came and said I did. But before the county could get there, the fire department came, and I would like to publicly recognize Captain Nathan Shepard, Engineer Joshua Hodgen, and Firefighter 2 Landon Ray. They were outstanding. And then when I got to the hospital, everybody at Randolph Health was outstanding as well. So kudos to being here in Asheboro when I had a problem and not somewhere else.
Yep. We're glad you're better.
Thank you.
And we pray and send you lots of well wishes for a total recovery.
Thank you.
Bill?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Togner, Joey?
Yeah, all I want to do is wish our city manager a speedy recovery. I hope he feels better soon. We missed him tonight, and he better do what his wife tells him and behave so he can recover quickly.
All right. Staff, thank you once again. We'll call this meeting adjourned.